There are some well-known vegans now in the longevity space, and they admit they take over 100 pills a day.
Yeah, that's not a life.
And those are just the nutrients that we know about. There's a database, and if you look in that database and you put in like red meat, you put in like a steak, 42,000 components in it. But vitamins and minerals on a steak package, maybe 8, 12, 15 things, but there's 42,000 unique components in a steak. The complexity of our food is much more than we've been led to believe. And I think the idea that we can just distill that into a multivitamin or distill that into a powder that's wildly wrong.
I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh.
It's not often I sit down with somebody and they say something that makes me think.
Oh,
this was great.
I love you guys.
Will you give me something to think about?
My own damn way.
I had a lot of fun on this interview. We're going to sit here today and talk about all the things that I was very, very curious about when it comes to men's testosterone, when it comes to fat loss, when it comes to all these things that are leading us to diabetes and really putting us on a path for a good, healthy diet and really educating us, because I feel like our generation is lacking the true wisdom when it comes to what we're putting into our body. And I can't wait for this episode.
Let's do it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the George Janko Show. This is our first guest in our new house. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me, guys.
You came all the way from Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
How do you like it out there?
I love it in Costa Rica, man. I'm just a jungle guy at heart.
Where were you born?
I was born in California, Santa Barbara.
Oh, wow. Oh, Santa Barbara's so beautiful.
But that's a massive difference.
Yeah.
I know, but I didn't grow up there. I grew up on the East Coast, basically, suburbia.
Today you were working out outside, and I have to start out the podcast.
Let's go.
Because it's so funny. He goes, "Oh yeah, I just made a really bad mistake," and I was like, "What happened?" He goes, "I was just doing this thing, and I thought it was good in my head in the moment." And I was like, "What happened?" He goes, "I was recording kids coming out of school," and I was like,
Wait, what?
Paul, what in your right mind did you think that was a good idea?" He goes, "Well, they just looked so excited leaving for recess that they were in cages. And I was so frustrated. Why did we leave them in cages?"
And I was making like an Instagram story and I was editorializing as I was filming. So I was over at like Cashman Park and I was doing sprints outside.
Okay.
And, I'm standing under this tree between sprints and I see these kids just come out of the school and there's like a fence, like a bar fence between us.
Don't tell me you were shirtless.
I was shirtless. Of course, it's Phoenix.
Oh, my God.
Paul gets arrested on the way here. I'm like, I can't do the interview. Well, what happened? I was shirtless recording kids. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. But when he told me that, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great interview.
I'm going to tag you in the story. I'm going to put that story on Instagram. I'm going to tag you, George.
Wait, so
Janko.
did a police officer see you? Like, how did this?
No, there were no police actually on the scene.
Oh, okay. He's just, okay.
Yeah, it was just somebody from the school that kind of like walked over with a walkie-talkie and was like, "You can't film the kids." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." I mean, I was just like trying to make an interesting statement about how we school kids and how they're indoors all the time. And it's just so joyful seeing them like just run out of the school. They're like, I mean, it's over 100 degrees, outside. Yeah. And they just bolt out of that school. They want the sunlight. They just want to be outside. They want to play. They want to throw things.
Your brain is always actively looking for like teachable moments. Does that ever get like get you in trouble like today? Does that get?
I guess it did. Yeah, today was an anomaly. It doesn't usually get me in trouble like that.
But when you're at a grocery store, do your friends get annoyed of you when they're picking out something from like the grocery?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And they're like, "Don't eat that. That has like."
Oh yeah, I don't proselytize. I let my friends do what they want to do. But we did get kicked out. We've only gotten kicked out of a few places. Whole Foods will not let us film anymore. So if any of like the managers at Whole Foods see us, they'll kick us out immediately.
Really?
Sprouts is now letting us film, but we got kicked out of Aldi recently. The manager didn't like us in there and we got kicked out and had to come.
You were talking pretty highly about Sprouts, right?
Oh, I talk mostly, we're doing positive stuff now in grocery stores, grocery hauls.
Because you won't be able to get your groceries.
Yeah. I mean, we did a lot of negative stuff in the past, and that's probably why we got a bad rap, and they kicked us out a lot. But
I think that's a good thing, too, to take the positive approach. That way, when somebody goes into a store, they go, okay, let me grab all the positive things.
Yeah, they know what to buy.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And I mean, we were talking about this before the podcast, but grocery stores, I mean, this is cliche to say, but that's just where we hunt and gather today, right? So how does someone navigate that? I think the choices that we make, first of all, if someone is in a grocery store, you're doing good. Because if you are selecting your food in a grocery store, props to you. Step one, you're doing the right thing. As opposed to going to fast food, right? That's harder.
Yeah.
Or near impossible. Restaurant, somewhere in the middle. But like restaurant, fast food, much harder to make good choices. But if you're in a grocery store, you're doing good. But then once you're in a grocery store, what do you buy? Because I think you could shop in a grocery store and make decisions that are getting in the way of your health or continuing to sort of perpetuate illnesses or issues that you might have.
How did you get into this mind? Like, Was this when you were younger and you were like, oh, I really like fitness and health? Or was it kind of like I was put in a situation where I want to make sure I'm like healthier?
I think it was the latter. I think it, like many things, it came out of just a pursuit for myself. So I had eczema growing up and asthma. I had eczema is like itchy red bumps on my wrists and my hands.
Do you know what caused it?
Well, we'll get to it, right? Food caused it, clearly, for me.
And did the doctors know that?
No.
So now I'm starting to find your passion. Kind of like Barbara. You went and you knocked on the doors. They didn't give you the answers that you were looking for. And you went straight to the roots.
And you figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and what was your first aha moment?
I think it was probably sometime around medical school. So I was a physician assistant in cardiology before I went to medical school. So I worked in cardiology as a PA. PA is kind of like between a doctor and a nurse.
Yeah.
My dad is a doctor. He worked a lot. I saw him overwork and basically never balanced life and work. And so I thought maybe a PA would be a good in-between. So first I went to PA school. I worked in cardiology, and I thought, I don't have enough autonomy here. And even in cardiology, working as a PA, I could see that we weren't doing for the patients as much as I wanted to do for them. Like, we would give them medications, and I sort of learned what medications to give, but I was always curious, what's causing heart attacks? What's causing atherosclerosis, this process of plaque in the heart? What's causing high blood pressure?
You wanted to make a difference. You weren't there for the paycheck.
I wanted to know what caused it. I think that I'm fascinated by what makes it work, I just wanted to understand the human body. What a fascinating, elegant machine. What is causing it? And I could see there was a thread, and I thought it was food for a lot of my life. And so I went back to medical school, and it was in medical school I started thinking about that really for myself. But I guess even before medical school, I could tell that food made a difference for me, because I had a time when I was a raw vegan, man. When I was a PA, I was a raw vegan.
Let's talk about that, because my friend, I got on a vegan diet for a little bit, but I hopped off of it because I felt like it was fake energy. It wasn't and I also was worried about my hair. I felt like my hair was thinning a little bit. So I want to get your ideas of this, because she doesn't eat meat at all. She has fish. Uh-huh. Is that a healthy alternative lifestyle for a woman or a man to be just no meat?
No meat. So I have concerns about that. So vegan diets, really good idea, really good intention, really bad execution. So there just are unique nutrients found in animal foods, whether that's fish or chicken or beef or pork or lamb or elk that you hunted.
Pork?
Yeah, pork has unique nutrients.
I thought pork was haram. No.
Well, in some religions, right? It
no,
is.
But so if you follow down with a religion, is because of health issues. The same as some Christians don't deal with it as well, because they don't have any sweat glands. And they're bottom feeders, so they hold bacteria, and they don't they're not clean animals, so that's why they stay away from them.
Pork has unique parasites, so with pork you have to cook it really well. Pork has tapeworms and stuff that you can get in pork. Pork can be good if it's raised properly. It's kind of no matter what animal you're going to eat, you want to make sure that animal is raised in the way that it should be raised.
What is beneficial and healthy about eating pork?
Pork has bioavailable protein. It has thymine. It has biotin. It has riboflavin. Some riboflavin.
So for somebody who didn't go to law school or doctor school, what does that do for you?
Pork has vitamins and minerals, just like all meat of animals has vitamins and minerals. And a lot of these vitamins and minerals don't occur in plant foods, or occur only in small amounts in plant foods. So the idea is as a human, so Homo sapiens, right? Yeah. We really cannot get all of the nutrients that we need to live as humans and thrive and procreate and be fertile and live our best lives, think clearly, sleep, recover from simply plants. This has been known for a long time. Even the staunchest vegan will tell you they're okay taking a B12 supplement, because that nutrient occurs only in animal foods. Mm-hmm. But the list of nutrients that occur only in animal foods, or almost exclusively entirely in animal foods, goes way beyond B12. There's other nutrients like creatine, which is an energy substrate for the brain and the muscles recovery, carnosine, those are antioxidants, taurine, which is an amino acid that we talked about earlier. Taurine has been associated with longevity across species, occurs only in animal foods.
Do do you support when they use powder substance of it? Like, for example, people who take creatine scoops.
Right.
Would you rather them eat it or take the scoops?
Always better to get it in food, but I think for some things it's okay to do the supplement as long as the supplement is good quality and you know the supplement. But here's the other piece is like there are some well-known vegans now in the longevity space, and they admit they take like over 100 pills a day or
that's not a life, though, right?
63 supplements, and those are just the nutrients that we know about. One of the coolest parts is all the stuff that we don't know about in a whole food that can act like it's like the tip of the iceberg. We don't know everything about nutrition. There's a database out of Canada. It's called foodb.ca, I think. And if you look in that database and you put in like red meat, you put in like a steak, 42,000 components in it. But vitamins and minerals on a steak package, maybe 8, 12, 15 things, but there's 42,000 unique components in a steak. So the complexity of our food is much more than we've been led to believe. And I think the idea that we can just distill that into a multivitamin or distill that into a powder that's wildly wrong.
100%. And it's, always better to just get the natural source because you're getting it from the fresh, where it's, coming from originally.
Bioavailable and bioidentical in that situation. Now, again, I think there's a time and a place for supplementation. I take creatine powder myself.
You don't bloat or get fat from it?
No, I don't have a problem with it.
Why? How come some people do and some people don't? It's just like a body thing?
I've not heard people are bloating from creatine. I
bloat so hard
from creatine.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's a gut issue for you.
I have gut issues.
That could be a problem. I don't have any problems with creatine.
How old are you?
I'm 47.
See, this is what I was talking about. I should have started it that way because some people are like, what does he know, bro? And then they hear your age, like, all right, I'll listen. Bro, I just hit 30 and I look like what your age should look like. And you look like what I should look like. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. I'm trying to get my way out. That's why you're here. I'm trying to learn. After this, we're going to sit down. I'm going to go on a diet and I'm literally going to take a picture of myself and I'm trying to clear myself out. I'm trying to get on a very disciplined, healthy journey. I got to cut the sugars out and the fast food joints out.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, why do you eat so much fast food?
Okay, so this is my problem. I've studied this. This is because I was doing really well and then I fell off again. I get like in my head about my weight and then I'm like dedicated and then I'll celebrate because like life, something good happens. And then when I get hooked on it again, it's just like, I can't get off. It's like crack.
It's a little addictive.
Of course it is. And also I travel a lot. So it's really, really hard if I'm getting off the plane at like 11 o'clock at night. I can't go somewhere to go get healthy food. And I'm in a hotel room, so I can't cook. Well, I don't cook. She cooks. She cooks amazingly. And that's why I feel guilty looking this way because she's an amazing chef and I should be like lean like you, but I don't.
So convenience is a killer for us as humans. So I traveled here from Costa Rica. I was in the airports. And again, I was trying to think of teachable moments. I'm walking through the airport. I think it was the airport in Houston that I was in before I flew to Phoenix. And I was looking around at the food and I'm thinking, there's not a lot of good food in this airport. It's really hard to find food. There were a few things. Actually, there was a place where you could get a burger and they actually served grass-fed meat, which was remarkable to me. But a lot of places in the airports are going to cook with cooking oils that I'm not a fan of, seed oils. We can talk about that. A lot of places, the restaurants are not in the business of giving you health food. They're giving you food that's tasty. And so a lot of the food has multiple ingredients. And then if you look at the packaged food is not super healthy for you either. So if as humans, we rely on convenience to be healthy, we're going to fail every time. So I think that it comes from a place of like, what does it mean to you? Like, why do you want to be healthy? And then you have to really make these behavioral changes. And that's not super exciting or sexy to talk about. But if somebody doesn't have the impetus, if you don't have like the desire to be healthy and you don't understand that this is behaviors number one, like how do you prepare for your trip? Is it just you have to get up 30 minutes earlier? So you throw the simplest thing, ground beef in a pan and put it in a glass container and take it on a flight? Or
yeah, but you're eating cold meat.
That's fine.
No, that's weird.
No, it's totally fine.
That's weird, bro.
You have to make sacrifices.
See, this is what I'm talking about, bro. I can't go from a delicious hot meal. That's not good for me. And then for me to, my mind to eat like, dude, watching you eat meat like that, I was just like, what? That's not normal to me. Like he walked in, he goes, I got you a treat. Like Tommy, like my dog. He took out this little treat and he goes, here you go, dude, here you go, good boy. And then I took it and I ate it and I was like, yeah, this is healthy. But like in my mind, it doesn't click. How could you, maybe it's like a habit, like you have to get into the habit?
Yeah, it's a habit.
Okay, so you eat meat like just as a snack too, like just like a Snickers, you just eat it.
I just eat it. So like,
that's crazy.
So like, yesterday I told you, I traveled from Costa Rica yesterday. I live about 3 hours from the airport. So the night before, and this is going to sound cumbersome to people, but this is kind of what it takes, right? A little preparation goes a long way. So the night before, I just put extra meat on the grill, and then I have a glass container, and I throw extra meat in the glass container, and then I do stories on my Instagram. This is what I'm bringing on the plane. So on the plane, I brought a glass container. It's about this big. It's a pretty big glass container of at least a pound of meat. It was skirt steak and hanger steak with some salt. And I brought some fruit, and that was what I ate on the plane. And I had my own stuff, and the flight attendants love it. They're just like, "What are you doing?" They come by and they're like, "Can I get you anything?" I'm like, "Nope." never. They're always like, "What are you doing?"
This video is sponsored by Aura, and man, this is gonna be an Aura organic brand deal because I was on Jeff's episode on Jeff FM, and the whole time I just kept staring at his watch. To myself, I was like, man, I wonder how much money he spent on that watch. That's such a nice watch. And it turned out nothing. Like, it's literally anywhere from 250 or two. Actually, let me pull up the precise amount. Yes, I was right. Anywhere from $220 to $350. So if you guys are looking for a very, very chic, nice style watch for everyday use, very fashion forward, then go to aura.watch/George or use my code George30 for 30% off. So not only is it a freaking sweet deal already, but you're gonna get 30% off of it as well. I love companies like this. They give you good quality for a good price. So when people look at you, they know you're smart, classy, sophisticated, and you know how to tell time. You know what time it is? It's time for you to go to aura.watch/George or use my code George30 for 30% off. You know what time it is. Okay, back to the show. That meat, like, it doesn't go bad?
Food safety is an issue, but like, I'm cooking the meat, I'm storing it overnight in the refrigerator. It's going to be fine for 4 hours.
How long could it last, like, just not refrigerated? In?
6 hours, 8 hours. It's not a big deal.
Got it.
It's really not like...
I think that's my problem is I have lack of knowledge of, like, what I could and could not eat.
Yeah.
Like, to me, if I leave anything out for a little bit, like when people eat cold pizza, I didn't eat cold pizza until, like, my late 20s. I thought that was, like, you're going to die if you do that. I was like, no, you're going to get something.
And even something like this, like these meat sticks I gave you, like a piece of beef jerky, like that's going to be fine. That's dried, so that's going to be fine for a long, long time. That's going to be fine for months. Okay. But like meat that you cook and you put in a glass container, that's going to be fine.
What's your diet?
Hours. So basically, I eat mostly animal foods, and then I eat some plant foods. So I used to be carnivore. I used to be strictly animal foods, and I found that when I added some plant foods back, I felt better. But going to strictly animal foods was a really powerful step for me. It taught me a lot because that was when I really first understood the power of an elimination diet or simplifying my diet on my eczema, because that's when my eczema went away for the first time in my life, when I cut out all plant foods. And then
Let's
I realized,
talk about that. What did you eliminate that you felt like actually helped you out the most?
it's hard to say what it was because I eliminated a lot of things and now I'm
What was
putting
your
things
regular
back.
dieting? Like, what would you
Okay,
eat?
so before I did that, so I was in residency at the University of Washington. I went to medical school after I was a PA in cardiology. Went to medical school at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Then I went to Seattle.
Welcome back.
Yeah, right? It's close to home. And then University of Washington in Seattle for my residency. And it was during my residency that I had some pretty bad eczema flares. Like this is itchy, red bumps on my arms, on my wrists, on my elbows, on my hips. I remember I went on a date with a girl one time and I was so embarrassed because she said, "What happened to your arms?" And I didn't want to tell her it was eczema. I said I was out surfing at the coast and I was like, "Oh, I rolled in some poison oak or something." And I didn't even want to tell her, So it was like a pretty big deal, the eczema. Sometimes it would happen to my face and I just got really fed up with it. And I thought, I'm going to try this carnivore diet. I'm just going to go on this simple elimination diet. I think simple elimination diets are very powerful for autoimmune conditions for humans. I don't think everybody needs to go carnivore, but some sort of elimination diet can be really powerful.
What about like gut health?
Absolutely, for that too, yeah.
Okay. And
there's a lot of reasons for that. But so I just ate a little bit of liver, some heart, and like muscle meat and salt and fat and some eggs for basically a year and a half. That was my carnivore diet phase, and the eczema goes away.
Could you explain to me the journey? How did your first week go versus your last week go? Yeah, so the beginning of that, when you cut out all carbohydrates, you go into ketosis, which is keto. Yeah, I do that for rolls. And by the way, like I can show you pictures of myself when I'm on keto. I look like a different human being.
Really?
Yeah, like a different human being.
Well, I want to talk about why. I want to drill down into that.
Yeah.
So the transition to keto is not easy for everyone. It wasn't horrible.
Is it
for me.
healthy though to go back and forth?
I think it's fine to go back and forth, but I don't think keto is a great long-term state for humans. It's stressful, especially for women, but also for men. We know that it elevates stress hormones.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it definitely elevates.
So you know, we don't know.
Yeah, it elevates cortisol, it elevates glucagon, it elevates catecholamines, which are things like adrenaline.
And so it stresses you out?
It doesn't necessarily stress you in your brain, but your body is always doing these processes called gluconeogenesis where you have to create your own glucose. And there are indicators that is a stressful process. It's sort of a fallback process for humans. It's essentially a starvation state.
Is this why they do this for people that are on cancer?
The cancer thing with keto is interesting. I think that the data is not fully there right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's not fully understood that keto is the best thing for everyone with cancer. I don't think the idea that carbohydrates cause cancer is fully fleshed out in the medical literature. And the word carb or carbohydrate is something that's very confusing too, right? Because there's a lot of nuance there, like what's a carb, what's a carbohydrate. But for me, I did a 1.5 years, just meat, eczema goes away, but you asked about the beginning and the end.
Please.
The reason I stopped is because toward the end, I really noticed I was starting to have muscle cramping, my sleep was getting worse, I was checking my hormones, my testosterone started to go down, and my thyroid wasn't as optimal as it should be. So you could see all these indicators of kind of long-term, quote, starvation state physiology in a human. You can live like this. Historically, evolutionarily, we probably went through periods where we didn't have access to fruit or tubers. Your body can switch back and forth. It has this alternative fuel pathway, but I don't think it's the ideal pathway for humans. And what we clearly see is in both men and women, fertility, sex hormones, which are really like indicators of abundance. These are switched on when you have adequate calories and adequate carbohydrates. So most of us want that.
Did you slowly reintroduce like fruits and vegetables when you were towards the end of it?
Fruit,
Yeah,
not
fruit.
vegetables.
Okay.
No, I still don't really eat vegetables.
Really?
Yeah.
I did read on how you feel about plants and something that like I had learned a lot. Do you know who Dr. Gundry is?
Yeah.
Okay, so in talking about lectins and their defense mechanism, so is that the main reason why you stay away from a lot of vegetables, because of the lectins?
There's a lot of defense chemicals, even beyond lectins. So lectins are probably an issue for me with some foods. Lectins are carbohydrate binding proteins that are present in all foods, but some plant foods might trigger immunologic reactions in some people. So the overarching idea here, which is really fascinating to me, Western medicine doesn't really get this yet, is that not all foods, even foods that we might consider healthy or unprocessed, work for everyone's immune system.
Yeah.
So this is fascinating because I have autoimmune tendencies. I get eczema, I get asthma. These are part of this atopic condition in like that they cluster together in humans. And so even foods that we think of as healthy might not be great for me. So I try and eat tomatoes. Tomatoes are a nightshade along with goji berries and eggplant. And I'm half Italian, right? My last name is Saladino.
Do you de-seed the tomatoes?
Yes, I de-seed them. I take the skin
Peel
off and I still get eczema within 3 or 4 days. I did it recently because I thought I love tomatoes. I would make this tomato paste myself. I go to the farmer's market in Costa Rica. I get organic tomatoes. I boil them. I take the skin off. I take all the seeds and then I pressure cook them or I cook them in a pan and I still get eczema. So it's just a food that clearly doesn't quite work with my immune system, but some people can eat tomatoes just fine. But this is really what I learned from the carnivore diet phase is that if you have, I think the biggest takeaway for me was that like people that have autoimmune disease should really think about what foods they're eating. And a lot of foods we think of as healthy, some vegetables, can cause this issue for people. And there are
100%.
defense chemicals in plants, especially the vegetables.
Right. And would you say because of these things in the fruits and the vegetables, they create inflammation in our body? And I do feel like, you know, the root cause to a lot of these autoimmune diseases are inflammation in our body. And so how would you tell somebody that if they're maybe struggling with asthma or any other autoimmune diseases, would you tell them to kind of make trial runs? So per month, kind of eliminate things, slowly reintroduce them, see kind of like what works for them, doesn't work?
I think that's a really good strategy. So inflammation is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it just is activation of the immune system. So you have B cells, you have T cells, you have natural killer cells, and inflammation is when the immune system is getting triggered and it's doing its thing. It's really signals that are exchanged between cells in our body. That's inflammation. And so for some people, some plant chemicals can cause that, probably because they disturb the gut, and a lot of the immune system is wrapped around the gut.
Right.
So I think that thinking about that and simplifying the diet is a great step for people with autoimmune disease. And I can't tell you how many people I've met at this point in my life through being online, through comments, through gatherings, through meet and greets, who come up to me and tell me they had XYZ condition, whether it's psoriasis in their legs or something like a gut condition like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, any of these Sjogren's, multiple sclerosis. So many autoimmune conditions do respond to intentional dietary choices. And the first step is not necessarily carnivore or even variations of it. It can just be cutting out processed food.
1,000,000%. That's literally was my journey when I, like you, I had asthma when I was young, and I was on so many steroids and things. And what healed me was food. I went to a naturopath doctor, and he tested my toes, and I eliminated so much. Like, I was off of pretty much everything. And he told me at the time, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, dairy was a big thing, was a big issue.
You can leave it right there.
And he believed that dairy was the cause of the asthma. And so, like, I just got rid of so many things, and then I slowly reintroduced chocolate little by little and nuts little by little and things like that. So how do you feel about dairy as a whole?
I'm a huge fan of raw dairy. So unpasteurized dairy. And again, not everybody's immune system is probably going to work with that from a cow. There's dairy from a cow, there's dairy from a goat, right? Some people drink camel's milk. I've had buffalo milk. And I think that, for most people, raw dairy is better than pasteurized dairy. Something probably happens to the whey proteins in milk, and it changes the way our immune system sees these proteins when we heat it. So most milk is not meant to be raw. It's just meant to be, most milk is not meant to be, how do I say this? Most milk is meant to be pasteurized because it's collected from the cow in conditions that are subsanitary. If you want raw milk, it has to be almost like a family cow, right? You have to have the udders clean. The cow has to be healthy. You have to milk them in a certain sanitary place. And so there are more and more raw farms available now for milk to scale. But raw milk has a history which is kind of checkered because there have been outbreaks of infections, salmonella or campylobacter from the raw milk. But then again, there have also been infections in salmonella and campylobacter from things like spinach. So any food that's not cooked has a potential to transmit bacteria. Raw milk is one of those foods. And so if you're getting it from a good source, I think it can be a very healthy food for humans, especially raw cheeses, things that are not pasteurized. But I think that for a lot of people, the pasteurized dairy can be a trigger. So I think there's a real difference between a raw milk and a pasteurized heated milk, or a raw cheese and a pasteurized heated cheese.
So what are those labels that when somebody goes to a store, they can look for? Like, okay, I need it to be, pasture raised or, grass fed. Like, what are these labels they can look for?
So when you're talking about meat, I like the label grass fed. And you really want it to be like grass fed, grass finished. And that's what the cow is eating for its life cycle. Most cows eat grass for 80 to 85% of their life, but the last 20% really matters because a lot of the meat that we eat in stores, even if it says USDA Choice or Prime, that's fed grains for the end of their life. And that really changes the quality of the meat. And I'm not saying it's unhealthy necessarily. It's just not as good as grass fed. And I think that I don't ever want perfect to be the enemy of good for people. I think that if all you can afford or all you have access to is grain finished meat, that's fine. There are still so many of those unique nutrients in the meat, even if it's finished with grains, but cows are ruminants, which means they have hooves like lamb or deer. They're meant to eat grass their whole life. When you feed them tons of grains, which are sprayed with pesticides like glyphosate and other additives or mold, then they just become a little less healthy, and that goes into the meat. So things change about the cow. So you want ideally the meat to be grass-fed, grass-finished. Again, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Red meat is healthy. Chicken is healthy no matter what for humans. It's a good food for us. When it's chickens, you want the chickens to probably be organic because chickens are kind of a strange one. They get fed a lot of grains, and chickens also aren't supposed to eat as many grains. We talked about pork a little bit earlier. Pork is hard. You want your pork to be probably organic, and what we feed chickens and pork really affects the quality of their fat and the quality of their meat more, which is probably why pork is such a hard one, because it's really hard to find good quality pork. When you're looking for eggs, you want something that's like organic and pasture raised. There's a lot of funny terminology around eggs. Yeah. There's pasture raised, but there's also cage free. Cage free means they have a small amount of space per chicken. Pasture raised, they have to have 108 square foot per chicken when they're outside, and they get outside for most of the day or all the day when they're pasture raised. Eggs that don't say cage free or pasture raised are basically raised in a hen house, and the chickens are all in cages. So ideally with chickens, you just raise your own and you get to feed them bugs. In terms of milk, most grocery stores are not going to have a raw milk. You're going to have to go.
No, Erewhon had it.
Erewhon has it in California.
Okay, so I want to tap into this milk because. Is it milk? Am I saying it wrong?
No, it's just you're like, I want to tap into this milk.
You could, by the way, you could keep your water next to you right over there if you like. When I was a kid, I used to drink milk all the time, like a ridiculous amount. Like my mom would go through a gallon within like 2-3 days. Like I would just blow past it, and I never had any issues like ever. And then I came to LA, and everybody kind of got in my head through this like, you should have almond milk or you should have oat milk. Right. So I went down that rabbit hole, and I realized that by the way, I'm still there. I haven't gone back to regular milk.
You're still drinking oat milk?
I think it
No,
messed
oat.
my gut up.
I don't doubt it. Oat milk?
No, not oat milk.
Almond milk?
No, I had oat milk too.
Oat milk?
Yeah, I had oat milk for my protein shakes.
Oh,
and,
bro.
and then I had almond milk for like cereal and like all that other stuff. But because they were trying to get me away from the dairy milk, they're like, oh my God, you're going to get cancer. And then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, damn, I don't want cancer. So I'm like going to drink this stuff. And I'm starting to realize my problem, and maybe the average human, is they get scared into like changing their diet. And so I want to take a step back. I want to talk about milk and what's the difference between the almond and all that stuff for just uneducated people like me that are listening. And the second is the organic thing on any type of front, like organic fruits to chickens, all that stuff. Is it just trying to get your money, or do you actually see a difference? Because there's some people like, I'm not spending the extra $3 because if they're going to do the pesticide regardless and all that stuff. So what do you say about those two questions?
Okay, so let's start with milk. So like I said, most milk is pasteurized and it's from cows that are in not the greatest conditions. And so I understand why people wouldn't be a huge fan of dairy from cows. But I think that if you can get raw milk, have you ever tried raw milk from Erewhon or goat milk?
I did. And by the way, it was delicious.
Right, it's good, right?
But here's the thing. First time I had it, I was like, let's go, no problem. Second time, glued to the toilet.
Yeah, some people are lactose intolerant.
Well, I think it was flushing me out. Not trying to be disrespectful, disgusting. Not trying to be disgusting, but my friend was like, "Oh, that's just cleaning your gut." Because here's another thing: I realized I didn't have gut issues until I switched milk.
Really?
Or I came to LA, or maybe it was like a placebo effect, and I started monitoring, or maybe it was my age. I don't know what it is.
Do you think it's an accumulation
It
of all the
might be.
things?
Bread to me wipes me out completely. I have like brain fog and fatigue. Like that's why I try to get on a low carb, and then like when I'm trying to be clean, a low carb diet, because I feel like my joints don't hurt. When I get rid of bread, my joints stop hurting completely.
I mean, that's a real clear gluten
and my
sensitivity.
hands are swollen.
Yeah, that's a clear gluten sensitivity for you, and we can talk about that too. So the problem with a lot of the plant milks is that they have additives. So I've talked about this on my social media. Oatly is made with seed oils. They actually put canola oil in Oatly, plus carrageenan, which is basically a thickening agent from algae. And there's different types of carrageenan. There's some medical literature to suggest that this thickening agent could irritate our guts. So plant milks could really be problematic for the human gut. And it's, again, like how many ingredients are in the things that you're eating, and which of those are potentially irritating your gut.
Yeah.
And once you irritate the gut, the immune system gets activated. You have inflammation. What's that triggering? You have autoimmune stuff, because if your joints are swollen from gluten, from bread, that's autoimmune, man.
What does that mean?
It means your immune system is reacting against your own body because your immune system is getting triggered in your gut by some kind of food you're eating that your body doesn't like.
So is that from the bread or is just other things?
Probably from the bread and other things.
Like sourdough doesn't really affect me that much.
Sourdough has less gluten, but not zero.
Yeah.
So it's
a
fermented.
gluten intolerance that I have.
It sounds like that clinically to me.
How do I find out? How does a guy that's watching you speak right now? Because, dude, like when you're speaking, you speak with such like confidence because you know the breakdowns to everything. How does a man like myself know, like, go into the realm of like studying what my body's good with and not good with? Like even the lectins you guys were talking about?
Mm-hmm. Lectins, yeah.
Only thing about lectin that I thought I was going to elect Trump for president. I didn't think anything else about lectin.
Yeah. I think that this is where we get back to the idea of an elimination diet. And I'll frame it like this, and then we'll get back to your second question. If you're thriving, don't change anything. Just keep thriving, right? If you're thriving, you don't need to change what you're eating.
What if they're eating fast food?
If you're thriving eating fast food, man, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be thriving forever, but like, who am I to tell you to stop, right? But if you're not thriving, then there's your motivation. There's step one. There's your sort of spark. And if you're not thriving, then make intentional changes with your diet and stick to it for 3 to 4 weeks. And that's not going to be easy, but it's going to be so valuable. It's the single most valuable thing you can do for your health long term. You can go and see a doctor, they'll give you a prescription, but you won't learn what's causing your issues, whether they're gut issues or depression and anxiety or sleep issues or infertility or low libido or skin rashes, whatever you've got. Like, you're not going to learn what's causing that if you just take a medicine to mask it. So do the experiment for yourself. You have full agency and sovereignty to go to the grocery store and select different foods. And so which foods do I eat? I think that the simplest sort of baseline diet for people is an animal-based diet. That's just what I've called it. And it's like a carnivore diet plus some plants. So basically it's meat and fruit is a good starting point. And I don't think everybody needs to, that's basically how I eat. I don't think everybody needs to eat that way, but that's a good starting point. If you
What
just
kind of fruits?
basically any fruit you want.
Really?
And
Yeah,
do you
pretty much.
eat them in season or does it matter?
Preferentially, but then we're getting like kind of granular. I don't want to make it impossible for people.
Okay.
Yeah. But like meat and fruit, like if you just ate, George, if you just ate meat, and you can eat chicken, you can eat fish, you can eat beef. If you just ate meat plus fruit for the next month, I guarantee you'll lose like 10 pounds and you'll feel so much better. Now, that's a limiting diet for you long-term.
But I love meat. I'm so fine with that.
You want to add things back and you just add them back easily. You were talking about this earlier, you know, like the idea of adding things back sequentially and so you know what's happening in your body. For me, I add tomatoes and I just add tomatoes and I say, my eczema is getting triggered. My body doesn't work with that. So you have to have something that you want to fix, whether it's joint pain, you want to lose weight, you want to feel better, you want to sleep better, whatever.
All of those.
Yeah.
Everything you just said.
Then just you make a simple change with your diet and you could just do meat and fruit or meat, fruit, and sweet potato or something, but you have to have some diet that gives you some parameters.
What's the first thing you say get rid of for like me, for example?
Probably the junk food, probably the fast food. Like if you...
Second thing. I'm just kidding. So you don't eat chips or anything like that?
No, I don't eat chips because...
So what are the odds that I could get you to have like Doritos right now?
Like zero.
No, there's nothing
I would literally run around this house
Because it's not worth it for
away
you.
from you. It's just not worth it to me, ever.
But so you mentioned sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of sweet potatoes because I think they're superfood. I think that if you're craving a carb, then it's a good, you know what I mean, thing
Right.
to have instead. So how do you feel about them?
Let's talk about vegetables and we'll get to that.
Okay.
So vegetables and fruit, that's that idea of fruit and vegetables. Vegetables are the parts of plants that are not fruit. So you look at a tree, there's not a lot of trees that are fruiting here in Arizona, but in Costa Rica, we have like banana trees and you can see there's bananas and then there's leaves and then there's a stem and there's roots. Mm-hmm. So like the leaves and the stems and the roots and the seeds of plants, those are what we consider vegetables. So wheat is kind of like technically a vegetable, even though we think of it as a grain, but I'm just giving you the idea. There are fruits and there are vegetables. And I think that, again, going back to carnivore, what I've learned for myself and for a lot of other people is that if we're just careful about which plant foods we select that are vegetables, we often do a lot better if we have autoimmune issues. I think grains, so the seeds of plants are grains. So, seeds of plants, that's grains are seeds, but the seeds of plants, which are grains, nuts, beans, and seeds, these are probably the most problematic, the most immunogenic sort of foods that I've found just clinically for humans. And
so would you say nightshade vegetables?
Well, nightshade vegetables are like a separate category, but like the seeds, the grains, the nuts, and the beans, if you cut these things out, a lot of times gut stuff gets better automatically because the seeds are like the most defended part of the plant. That's the plant baby. It puts digestive enzyme inhibitors in there. There's things like phytic acid, which is a big molecule that holds on to minerals and actually robs you of minerals. So I'm not a huge fan of oatmeal. Oatmeal is a grain. Oats are a grain. And
So there's a lot of people that when they're on a diet, like for example, my sister does morning oats.
Yeah.
So not good.
I'm not a huge fan. I think there are better choices for her in the morning. Again, if she's doing good with it, it's not poisonous, but oats have defense chemicals like saponins, which are kind of this soapy substance that can irritate the gut, and they don't get cooked out. Phytic acid is this chelating molecule, this like molecule that robs you of minerals. That doesn't get fully cooked out when you cook oats. A lot of oats are contaminated with glyphosate, and oats and all of the sort of seeds of plants accumulate heavy metals. So there's just something to consider that, like, I think that if you have issues, getting rid of plant seeds, which are seeds, nuts, grains, and beans, that's the first step. Yeah. And then the next thing I think people should actually consider kind of minimizing if they have issues are the leaves.
I'm so sorry. You're just blowing past so many things I want to ask. Did you say nuts?
Nuts.
So nuts are not good.
I think nuts cause a lot of digestive issues for people. When I was a raw vegan.
Like pumpkin seeds type of thing? Or like nuts, like peanut nuts?
Any of it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because I try and stay away from cashews because I learned that cashews are in the poison ivy family.
They are.
And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I try to stay away from those. But I thought almonds and like pistachios were really great. But so you're like, no.
I think if you have gut issues, try without them. You know, if you can eat pistachios and you feel fine, just make sure they're not cooked in seed oils, right? Or that there's not some funny stuff in there. I don't do great with almonds at all. So they're really hard to digest. When I was a raw vegan, I ate so many almonds and like everything is, there's all these delicacies, all these like fancy foods that these vegan chefs make. I had tiramisu, vegan tiramisu. It tasted great. And then I was pregnant. I was so bloated. I just had to fart.
Really bad bloats, man.
Yeah. That's just like nuts are very hard to digest. They're very hard to digest for
Whole time,
humans.
I thought the things that, it's eye opening. I go from eating really, really bad, from fast food to junk food. And then when I want to eat clean, I'm eating the bad clean things. All the stuff that you're saying don't eat, I should have just stuck with Taco Bell, bro. Like I didn't know. Like, well, he's telling me nuts are bad and I'm bloated. If you're bloated, like really, really bad, say you have anything and you bloat, what is that? What is your body telling you?
That there's something about the gut flora or something about that food that's just your body's not happy. So basically bloat is usually your small intestine. You have a small intestine and a large intestine. So you eat food, it goes through your esophagus and it goes into your stomach.
Yeah.
Then it goes into your small intestine, and the small intestine is really long. And when you get that like bloat that's almost painful up here, that's like
it feels like it's pressure.
It's that's when the bacteria in your small intestine are sort of not happy with something you just gave it.
That's like almost every time I eat though.
So again, the idea would be simplify your diet and figure out, like, find foods that you can eat that don't do that for 3 to 4 weeks, and then slowly add things back and figure out what's causing it.
Is there anything that I could take to just do a gut cleansing?
You may not need to do it. Your gut is always recycling kind of on its own.
Really?
Right? Yeah, your microbiome in your gut, which is trillions of bacteria, right? 10 to the 15 bacteria. A lot of people believe that there are more bacteria cells in your gut microbiome than there are cells in your body. So you may be at least an order of magnitude more not self than you are self. So that's very malleable. What you eat changes that completely. So if you stop eating a ton of junk food or you stop eating certain foods, your gut microbiome is going to shift on its own. You may not need a gut cleanse. Go simple in the beginning.
What about fasting? How do you feel about fasting?
I'm not a huge fan, especially for women. So fasting is, again, right back to that like starvation. Now, if you're trying to understand what's triggering your gut, there are utilities to fasting because it's simple. You're eating zero, right? And so you give your gut kind of a rest. But if you go too long, you are really just elevating those stress hormones. You have to eat.
Same thing that keto's doing.
You have to eat at some point, and you're not going to solve it with fasting. I really do not believe that there is solid evidence in the medical literature to say that fasting is magical or uniquely curative. The idea that you are not putting anything in your gut can be helpful because you're sort of giving your gut a rest.
And what are the studies that are talking about how, like, if you, God forbid, have cancer, any type of immune system that's like battling in your body, that if you fast, like even your cells or whatever has been eaten will go after the dead ones first. Is this the concept of autophagy kind of that you're talking about? This, like, I have no idea.
I think so.
So I'm just coming at you as an average individual that's heard the gossip of others and like try to, like, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is why.
Yeah, he's talking about
I'm
that
lost.
when that instead of your cells feeding on, like, the food that you're giving in, it's growing the cancer bigger and bigger. It's starting to feed on what you already have inside. And so it's eliminating, what's already kind of like been built.
I don't think there's really any good evidence regarding fasting and cancer at this point.
Okay, can I ask you something? Do you think a lot of us are getting misinformation online from people that are dressed as doctors?
Of course, but people accuse me of that too. So
really?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it's just like it's kind of like when people read the Bible. Some people take it a certain way, and some people take it a different way. Does that ever get annoying? And also, like, how do you know which is fully correct and what is not? Is it just up for examination? Like, you have to test it?
This guy wants more meat. He's like sneaks into the podcast.
Tommy is obsessed with him because he just like is after the meat.
I love it.
Yeah, he smells like the walking meat stick.
I made friends with your dog first. So I really understand this, and I understand people's plight because it's confusing, right? You would think, like, what I think people should do is use their intuition, and this was in your podcast with Barbara O'Neill. Be your own doctor, right? Don't take anyone's advice at face value, like, just interpret it, like, take it in, think about what it means to you, see how it feels intuitively, experiment, and then see how you feel honestly in your body. That's ultimately what you're looking for, because there are lots of very well-intentioned, intelligent vegans who are telling you that meat is bad, and I'm sitting here as a well-intentioned human telling you that meat is incredibly nutritious for humans and uniquely valuable. So how is someone supposed to parse that out? They're not probably going to read all the literature and all the meta-analyses.
Yeah, because Barbara doesn't agree with that.
I know. I heard on the podcast.
I think you guys should fight and see
We can
who
have
survives.
That would be such an interesting podcast to have the two of you, speaking on your different,
Was there anything you took away from that podcast that you enjoyed?
I appreciated a lot of that podcast. I love that she said, if you eat meat, eat organic meat. She seemed very open-minded to it. She didn't seem completely closed to it. And I really like that she is trying to understand the root cause of an illness. And I think that there's a lot of value in human experience. And this is another thing that Western medicine doesn't really appreciate. I mean, like, there are so many people, like I said, who have done an animal-based diet, basically meat and fruit, or just meat, and their autoimmune conditions get better. And to be fair, there are people who do vegan diets and see their autoimmune conditions get better. So what's going on there? That's very valuable. You know, my perspective would be, if you do a vegan diet and your conditions get better, it was probably the processed food, potentially the processed food, and I worry about long-term nutritional deficiencies. But again, if people are thriving on vegan diets, more power to them. I just worry about their long-term nutritional status, because I've seen it time and time and time again when people eliminate all meat and all animal foods. And I want to get to fish, because we got to talk about this, the potential issues with fish for you. But yeah, I loved how open-minded she was, and how she was actually trying to get to the root cause. And that's what it's about. We're all just trying to understand these things. And I love that. Hopefully these conversations give people hope, because so many people are suffering. And I don't say that lightly. So many people have issues. Either they can't conceive, or they have eczema, or gut issues like you, or sleep disturbance, or depression. And like we said at the beginning of the podcast, you go to a doctor and they say, here's a medication. Even the most intelligent, well-intentioned doctors often don't have much more to offer than that. So how cool is it that people like me or Barbara get to give people more tools when they're really ready for it?
Yeah.
I just want there to be more options for people, so that when they're ready, they can say, okay, maybe I'll try what she's saying. Maybe I'll try what he's doing. Because I want people to understand you're never really beaten, you know, that the human body is incredible. And I totally agree with her that the human body wants to be healthy if we just remove the impediments toward that health. That's a very naturopathic perspective, not an allopathic perspective. So what I did medical school in, I have an MD, is allopathic medicine. But I really believe that naturopathic medicine has the right perspective, which is remove the impediment and the body will heal.
Amazing.
I love that you're doing what you set your heart out to do when you started to do the whole medical field thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to a gentleman that's going to school for, like, to be a doctor or a nurse, and they're just teaching them to write a prescription? Like, I know that I've talked to some doctors that I could tell they're just dark inside, because they know what they're doing. They know that they're not helping fully. Like, how does that make you feel? And like, what would you give that man any advice with?
Man, I read the other day that there's like 1 million physicians in the United States. I didn't know there were that many doctors. 1 million doctors. I guess it makes sense. You know, a doctor can only see 10, 15 people a day. But I get so excited when I meet somebody in medical school, because I think, okay, that's the future. You know, I've often thought it would be really fun to go teach at a medical school, or go to medical schools and do debates with the faculty, respectful debates, because I think that if we can educate physicians, then everything will change.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, do you do bottom up or do you do top down? Like, is the government going to change things? I don't think the government, I mean, we can talk about what I would do at a governmental level. I don't think it's ever going to come from the bottom. Social media is kind of a double-edged sword. It gets used a lot from people kind of negatively, and it gets used to spread information that may or may not be true or false. And people say a lot of negative things on social media, but the amazing thing of social media is just that it allows for free exchange of information, and people can find information whereas they couldn't in the past. And so when I meet people in medical school, I think, okay, you're the future. I hope that you will just take this in, because you kind of have to do the dance, you know, get through medical school, give them the right answers that they want on the test. And then if you just think outside the box, if doctors, nurses, PAs just think, what is causing this condition I'm treating, we will be so much better off as Americans, as humans in the future. And I think it's starting. People are starting to kind of question the mainstream narrative, and that's a big deal.
And thank God for that, because it's in so many cases, you know, like I was fortunate enough to grow up with a mother who, you know, she got very passionate about this and dive deep into learning how we can heal ourselves naturally. I think God has given us everything we need, you know, to heal ourselves. But it's like when I sit in a doctor's office and I'm like, yeah, this is going on with me. And like, they don't touch you. They don't check anything out. They just ask you a few questions and they go, oh, okay, maybe just take some of this. Or or no answers. So many times I leave, I have no answers. And I just think that it's so sad that so many people who are not available to this information, they go into the doctors and then they go home and they're just blinded.
They don't know. They don't know this is even a possibility.
Right.
A lot of people have never even heard that almonds could be causing them to have gas or bloating. Like, that's a crazy statement. And again, I think almonds are much better than processed food, and some people can eat almonds just fine. But, you know, whether it's Spinach could be an issue for some people because it has oxalates. This is another one of these problematic compounds in food. Oxalates are a component of the main kidney stone that we get as humans, calcium oxalate kidney stones. So I think some people get joint pain or other issues in their body from high oxalate foods. You have lectins, you have oxalates, you have digestive enzyme inhibitors. These are all the defense chemicals that occur in those kind of vegetable foods. Can we talk about fish for a second?
Please.
So the thing I worry about when people are pescatarian, if they just get their protein from fish,
Me.
are the heavy metals. And Barbara talked about this, the heavy metals, because they're accumulating in the fish. And so I think that it's awesome that you're getting animal protein from the fish, and just make sure you check your heavy metals, especially when you guys want to have kids, because like that's important, because I think that heavy metals are something that not everyone thinks about. There's heavy metals in a lot of foods we eat. Nothing has zero heavy metals, but fish tend to bioaccumulate heavy metals. Even the bigger the fish, the more problematic it is. But even wild salmon has pretty significant levels of mercury, cadmium, the shellfish.
Are you talking about wild caught?
Even wild caught.
Yeah, I always make sure I never, ever eat farm-raised fish.
Talk to me about that. Why are you guys so like concerned about where the fish is coming from?
So the fish that is farm raised, 99.9% of farm raised fish is raised in tanks. They're fed like fish food, which is basically the equivalent of like junk food for fish. They're not eating what fish are supposed to eat, plankton or smaller fish, et cetera. So they're eating fish food, which is junk. And we know that farm raised fish has very high levels of contaminants, whether it's heavy metals or PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyl compounds, like problematic things in farm-raised fish. I actually just did a piece of content on this that a lot of people appreciated. You know that if you go to a grocery store, Atlantic salmon is never wild. There's no such thing as wild Atlantic salmon. It's only Pacific or Alaskan salmon. So if you see Atlantic salmon, it's always farm-raised, always.
What if it's, do they ever say it's something and it's not?
It's misleading. They won't say wild Atlantic, but they'll say like Atlantic salmon, and you don't know that it doesn't say farm raised necessarily. You have to read the back. And if you read the back of Atlantic salmon, you'll see they always put coloring in it, because farm raised fish is white. The salmon is white. It's not pink because there's none of these carotenoids from the things they're supposed to be eating in the ocean. So you know what tilapia looks like at the grocery store? It's white.
White, yeah.
That's what Atlantic salmon would look like if it's farm raised, if they didn't give it a coloring agent, which is just an illustration of the fact that like what you eat, what that food is eating matters. And so the quality of the food and the health promoting qualities of the food depend on how healthy that is. So
that's crazy. Like the fish is literally a different color.
Do they let them know that they colored it?
It says it on the label.
Yeah.
It says
they have to.
Yeah, coloring added. So that's a big thing with Atlantic salmon. But even wild Alaskan salmon, pretty significant amounts of heavy metals. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who want to do the right thing. You hear fish is healthy, right? And red meat gets a bad rap. We can talk about why that is and why I don't think it's something to be feared. But red meat gets a bad rap, so you should eat chicken or fish instead, right? Again, not the full narrative, but people end up eating salmon 3 times a week. You check their heavy metals, and you can just check blood levels of lead, mercury, cadmium, and arsenic. You can go to your doctor. It's not a fancy test, just a blood test. And they're pretty high.
What does that do for you?
Heavy metals are pro-oxidant. They cause stress. It's like, this is where you get the idea of rust, right? So oxidation is essentially it's rusting within your body. Your body is this delicate balance between the movement of electrons between molecules in your body, and oxidative compounds they're kind of like they're stealing electrons. They're causing damage to proteins, to cellular components. They cause this rust in your body at a high level. So it's just causing more stress on your body to have pro-oxidants. You know, like lead poisoning in kids, you've heard of this. Like they test kids for lead because it can cause developmental abnormalities. Kids don't end up learning as easily. They have growth delays or learning delays from heavy metals. Mercury is associated with all sorts of issues in humans, potentially hormone disruption, bone cancers. There's Alice in Wonderland. The Mad Hatter is an illustration of mercury poisoning. It's actually a known diagnosis in medicine called Hatterism, because the hat makers used to soak some part of the hat in mercury and they would absorb it through their skin.
No way.
The Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland has mercury poisoning.
Wow, that's so interesting.
I've known people who have gotten mercury toxicity just from eating sushi 4 to 5 times a week. Like sushi's the best thing ever, right? So they just want to go eat sushi all the time, and then you check, they have like mercury toxicity.
So how often would you say should I eat fish, and like which out of all the fish and seafood would be the cleanest to have?
So it's like the smaller the fish, the better.
Okay.
But I would want to make sure you get enough protein, and hopefully you could get animal protein. So I think ideally you would get animal protein every day, but I wouldn't eat fish more than once or twice a week. And
Gotcha.
I would always check the metal levels in your body. Again, even with the blood test to start, there are different ways to check the metals.
Do you find that the NAD supplement helps get rid of these heavy metals?
It might. Most of what you use to get rid of heavy metals is a molecule called glutathione. And you can supplement with glutathione, but your body has the ability to get rid of these things. You asked about a gut cleanse. Yeah. Sometimes people think about liver cleanses. Your gut is always changing. Your gut is always trying to repair itself. Your liver is always trying to repair and regenerate itself. So NAD may help. That's not completely the same as glutathione.
Okay.
Some people take glutathione. That can help with heavy metal excretion, but your body's always getting rid of heavy metals. But if it's kind of like you're putting water in the bathtub and you're draining water out of the bathtub at the same time, right? There could be a constant level of heavy metals in your body if it's coming in and going out.
Gotcha.
If you can decrease the heavy metals coming in, your body will eventually get rid of them. Some people need to get rid of them more quickly. So, so I think that that's the delicate balance, is getting enough protein that's high quality,
right?
But what's the sourcing on it?
Right.
And then I'll just mention this, back to the seeds, the legumes are maybe a better source of protein for people that don't eat meat. Again, they're not as bioavailable as animal protein.
What is the legumes?
Beans. Beans.
Got it.
But the problem again with these is they do accumulate the metals too. So the seeds accumulate metals also.
And I'm guessing metal is something that you're trying to avoid altogether.
Heavy metals, because of their oxidative.
And
they're stressful.
Learning disabilities and all slowing. Does it make you fatigued?
It could. Yeah.
I want to tap into cheese, because a lot of people are scared of cheese. I know you want to jump into the red meat.
No, we can talk about everyone.
But why is it that when people are on keto, they have high fats and cheese and meat, and they lose weight like crazy, and their fatigues and their brain fog is gone? But then some other people will be like, no, that's increasing your cancer. It's getting you fat. It's going to make you fatigued. So there's two different complete ideas of it,
right?
But it's the same product. What's the cheese that you have me eat?
Oh, I'm a very big fan of goat and sheep cheese. So he loves manchego, and then I get sheep in all sorts of forms.
Yeah.
So compare that to American cheese, where it's on a burger. You
know that American cheese actually cannot be called cheese. It has to be a cheese product, because there's I think it's an FDA regulation. It has to be it doesn't even meet the requirement. It's only 60% cheese. Yeah. American cheese is not real cheese.
You're talking about the sliced one that goes in the plastic?
The plastic,
yeah. It's one molecule away from being plastic.
Well, I don't know about that, but it could be.
The flat ones.
It's close.
The ones the flat ones.
Full conspiracy.
So if you actually look at American cheese under a microscope, you can see the microplastics. It's crazy. You can see these little fibers of plastic.
Have you ever looked at something under a microscope, or do you just leave it to the other people that
I don't have a microscope anymore. I did when I was a kid, but I haven't looked at it myself. But cheese, I think, is super healthy for humans. I mean, if you look at the studies in humans, dairy fat is consistently associated with really positive outcomes. And there are unique fats that occur in dairy. These are called odd chain fatty acids. Most of the fats that we encounter are even chains. This has to do with the number of carbons in the fatty acid chain. But the odd chain fatty acids essentially occur uniquely in dairy, and the amount of odd chain fatty acids in your body consistently associates with better outcomes, whether it's longevity or better overall health in life. So dairy fat looks to be very, very healthy in studies. That's pretty darn clear in Western medicine.
Why do people say it's not?
Because it raises your cholesterol sometimes.
Let's talk about that. We're jumping into red meat now. They always say that with that as well.
Yeah, because some of the fats in red meat, specifically palmitic acid, which is a 16-carbon saturated fat, does raise LDL cholesterol. But this is something we have to unpack, whether that's problematic or not.
Before we unpack that, why is high cholesterol bad?
So I don't believe that high cholesterol is always bad.
But so now you're just going against my mother.
Oh yeah. Now we're going full
now you need to leave. Okay, so talk to me about that. What is their fear with high cholesterol, and then what is your opposite opinion of it?
Yeah, I'll try and do this as simply as possible. It gets a little technical, so just pause me if I get off too much.
Gotcha.
So historically in medical school, we're taught high cholesterol, heart disease, and I think that the easiest comparison is we know that eggs have a lot of cholesterol, and what's inside your arteries looks just like eggs. Therefore, eggs cause heart disease.
A lot of people stopped eating as much eggs because of that.
Yeah, but what we know is that it's not really that simple, right? It's much more complicated than that.
That's what they go off of, though?
Well, I think this is just the high level of like what, this isn't what they taught in medical school, but I think this is how most humans think about this. They look at fat, and they see pictures of the inside of arteries, and they make the fat in the artery wall, which is called an atherosclerotic plaque. They make it yellow, and they make it look like scrambled eggs. And they're like, oh, scrambled eggs have cholesterol, therefore eggs cause heart disease, and fats are bad for me, and I shouldn't do that. But it's much more complicated than this. So there's different lipoproteins in your body. So lipoproteins are things like LDL or HDL. Those are the two main ones, but there's other types of lipoproteins. Lipoproteins are essentially buses. Think of your body as a really complex network of streets, and there are different buses that move around the streets being veins and arteries. And they have a central hub, which is probably your liver, a bus station, and your body at a high simple level, your body sends buses out from the liver. These are the LDL particles. They're bad cholesterol, and these go to your body and they deliver nutrients. And then sometimes buses come back to the liver and bring things back to the liver. That's like HDL at a very simple level. It's a little more complex than that. Sometimes passengers get off one bus and transfer buses, but there's bad cholesterol and there's good cholesterol in like the most simplest version of this. But it's much more complicated than that. And we know that to call LDL cholesterol bad is a massive oversimplification. I mean, you can't live without LDL cholesterol. There are genetic congenital conditions. One of them is called Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome, where people don't make cholesterol, which is a steroid molecule that actually goes into the LDL particle. And these kids have birth defects, they have learning delays, they die very young, they get sick a lot. We know that if you don't have LDL particles that are full of enough cholesterol, you don't function well as a human. Cholesterol itself is the building block of all of your sex hormones and other hormones which regulate things like salt and electrolyte balance in your body. So you can't make testosterone without cholesterol, you can't make estrogen, progesterone, any of these things. So LDL cholesterol gets a bad rap at a simple level because in individuals who have heart disease, we often see higher levels of LDL cholesterol, but not in everyone. And if you really look at the studies carefully, it's pretty clear that not everyone who has a heart attack has high cholesterol. But there are studies that can show associations between higher levels of LDL cholesterol and increased rates of heart disease. And I think that what we're looking at here, from my perspective, is an association rather than a causal connection. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because I think that to suggest that a particle that you cannot live without is actually damaging your body and is the beginning part of a plaque. It's, the more LDL cholesterol, the more plaque. This association, I think, is more complex than we're being led to believe. I think that LDL cholesterol, bad cholesterol, is involved in the plaque formation in your body, but doesn't start the process. So then we have to go back to the root cause. What starts the process? But if you listen to many well-intentioned, super smart doctors in the mainstream, they will tell you LDL cholesterol is causal. And I disagree with this. I think the evidence is pretty clear that it's not causing. Because when I hear the word cause, I think what causes a fire? A spark, right? It has to actually initiate the process on its own. Yeah. And LDL cholesterol doesn't seem to do that in humans. It's associated with higher rates of atherosclerosis in some studies. But if you look at humans, and there have not been a ton of studies like this, but the studies have been done. If you look at humans who are insulin sensitive, that is metabolically healthy, that is not diabetic, not on the continuum of diabetes, the association between LDL cholesterol and heart disease looks very different, and often there is a very, very small association or no association anymore at all. So it's very confusing, right? And I think what we're confused by in Western medicine is that most of our population is unhealthy, and so yes, LDL cholesterol is probably involved in the formation of a plaque. If everyone is unhealthy, it can look like LDL is causing that, but I don't believe it's the original cause. Did I lose you there?
No, if anything, I want to know, is it kind of like if we're using the bus analogy, if we're using the bus analogy, it's like every time they get to the car accident and they're trying to break down what happened, they assume because the wheels are attached to the bus, they're like, oh, it's the tires. It's always the tires. But you're saying, no, there's so much more going on here that just because it shows up in the studies of a heart attack and of all these things, they're trying to make it seem like it's the spark when it's not.
Just because the firemen show up to a fire doesn't mean they caused the fire, right? Yeah. LDL is going to be at the scene of the crime. LDL is going to be in the plaque, but doesn't mean it caused the plaque, right? The firemen show up for the fire. This is the other way I think about it, like wood and fire. So you need LDL cholesterol to make a plaque, this atheromatous plaque, the atherosclerosis. You need LDL cholesterol for that. You need wood to have a fire in the traditional sense if you have a campfire. But wood doesn't cause the fire on its own, and LDL cholesterol has a lot of valuable roles in the human body. There are a lot of studies in elderly populations showing that more LDL cholesterol is consistently associated with better longevity and freedom from infectious disease. LDL cholesterol participates in the immune response against illness. LDL cholesterol interrupts quorum sensing, which is the communication between bacteria and viruses. So LDL and HDL have a role in the immune system. We're never told that. We're just told LDL cholesterol is bad. That's crazy. LDL is an immune particle. It's valuable. It helps us fight infections in the human body. There were lots of, I don't know how much we can say without getting censored, but there were lots of hypotheses about this, even during the recent pandemic, about LDL cholesterol and levels of LDL cholesterol and potentially helping with viral infections. So wood has value. You use wood to build a house, right? If you have sparks, having more wood around could be a problem. But the wood doesn't cause the fire. It's the sparks that cause the fire. In the analogy I'm trying to draw here, what are the sparks? That's the original cause of atherosclerosis. So what are the sparks? We can talk about it. I think there's a lot of good evidence. The spark is insulin resistance, also known as metabolic dysfunction, prediabetes.
I was about to say, and then that could lead into Alzheimer's.
Oh, that can definitely lead into Alzheimer's. That, I think, problems, insulin resistance, AKA metabolic dysfunction, is at the root of so much of what we suffer from as humans.
That's a big thing I want to dive into. So before we dive into that, do you think, and this is just a conspiracy, just a thought, do you think a lot of the medical fields purposely mislead you to treat you later?
No, I don't. I don't, actually. I think that pharmaceutical companies have an imperative to their board to make money. And I don't think all pharmaceutical companies are always super well-intentioned, but I don't think they're all completely evil either. I mean, there's a lot of good things that come out of pharmaceutical companies also. I think that in general, the medical system is trying to do good. I just think that you have a system that's kind of self-sustaining, right? The pharmaceutical companies pay for 75% plus of medical studies. Medical students are taught medical studies. We're only basically taught about drugs.
Yeah, but now we got to go down to Jordan Peterson, who owns the people that teaches them.
Right. Yeah.
So there is a rabbit hole I would love to kind of dive into, but I don't want to because I don't want to get killed. But okay, so I want to take another step back. When we were talking about the red meat and how you said that it helps women and men with like testosterone and what is it that women have? PCOS, but what do they have? Like we have testosterone. They have
estrogen. Ovaries.
Estrogen. Yeah, sorry. So that being said, I noticed that when I was growing up, they were like, steroids is not good for you. Don't take steroids. Now I'm getting into this generation where men are like, no, dude, I go once a week. I get this. And mind you, if you are naturally not building testosterone and your doctor and you have talked about it, I think that's an okay approach. But from my perspective, I'm watching these men get shredded, look good, take the easy way out and not really take the this proper steps to get there. And when they have to get off because they can't be on it too long, they crash harder and then they get really insecure. Like, when you said that, it's kind of hard going from getting a shredded body and then chubby again. And then people are like, what's going on here? And then it pushes you to go back to do those more drugs. What is it to do? What could we do for these young gentlemen from the age of 25 to 35 when their body's naturally slowing down? Because I think we're living in a generation that we're eating a lot more fast food, we're eating a lot more processed food. What could they do to help their testosterone grow naturally without sticking a needle inside of them?
Right. So let me tell you this. So I don't take TRT.
Liar.
I,
You're lying. You don't look like that
I know.
naturally, buddy. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
I show my labs all the time on my podcast. Like,
Really?
Yeah,
You're completely natural?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be disrespectful, but
No,
you
no.
look like you're not natural.
I'm completely natural. Like I've shown my blood work probably 6 times in my podcast. Yeah, I've never done TRT. And again, I'm 47 years old. If somebody's 47 and they want to do TRT, that's a decision with your doctor. But I know lots of people who are my age or older. My testosterone is between 800 and 900 total. Like the idea.
What's the regular and what's the when it's not looking good? And how does a man test this type of stuff?
Just a blood test. Yeah, it's a morning blood test. It's generally a fasted blood test, but it doesn't have to be. It's usually before 8 a.m. in the morning. Testosterone has a circadian rhythm, so it's highest in the morning, and then it drops down at night.
The circadian rhythm, does that have to do with the moon and how you sleep?
It just has to do with a day-night cycle. Yeah.
So that actually affects your testosterone?
Absolutely.
So if I'm fatigued, my gut is like beat up, and I'm always on the move and I'm eating terribly, can that affect my testosterone?
100%. And not sleeping affects your testosterone because you get signals from your brain. The pituitary gland sends signals to your testicles to make testosterone. This is FSH, this is FH, FSH, and LH, right? So these two hormones, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. If you really want to understand what's going on with your testosterone, you have to check the brain signal and the testicle signal.
I got to ask a question. It might be personal. Are signs of that like you're just not getting it up?
It can be.
Because what happens if like you're getting it up just like a teenager, but like could you still have testosterone issues?
Yes, you still could have testosterone
Really?
issues. Yeah. And
so you have no problem getting it up and you could have testosterone issues?
Yeah, and that might manifest as low libido or trouble gaining muscle or trouble with mood. Yeah. But generally when people have declining testosterone, they will notice lower libido or some erectile dysfunction at some level, but not necessarily.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to know about that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting because I just want to note that like your testosterone doesn't necessarily decline when you're over 25 or over 35 or even over 45 as a man if you're careful about the way you live your life.
Yeah.
So the pillars of testosterone are good sleep, like really solid sleep. You have to sleep well to have testosterone. I think you have to avoid all of the endocrine disruptors in our world. And then I think you have to give your body the nutrients it needs and give it a signal of abundance. So when I was keto, when I was carnivore, my testosterone went from 800 to around 500.
And is 500 good?
500 is still within the reference range, but it declined. I mean, my testosterone declined pretty significantly.
And what do you think was the lead cause of that?
I think when you don't give your body carbohydrates, and again, not all carbohydrates are great for humans, carbohydrates are a signal of abundance for us as humans. You think about this evolutionarily or historically, right? In the past, if we are in tribes, when you have fruit is in season, when you have honey and these kind of things, you think this is calories. This is a signal of abundance for humans, and this is our time to breed. This is our time to be fertile. When we don't have those things, it's probably winter or we're starving or we're not in a place of abundance. So we need enough calories and we need to have carbohydrates. I mean, if you don't have carbohydrates, testosterone generally declines.
So
aside from fruit and honey, what are some other good carbohydrates to eat?
Okay, great question. So fruit and honey are my main carbohydrates. I also do squash, which is a fruit. That's just what works for me on this animal-based diet template. But milk has carbohydrates. I think sweet potatoes are kind of in the middle. They're probably the most tolerated carbohydrate outside of fruit and honey for people. So tubers can work, although white potatoes are a nightshade. So some people have immune reactions to white potatoes. But if you can do white potatoes, that's great. I think that if you go from there, that's where I would pause. Before you start eating grains for carbohydrates, understand how that affects you as a human. Some people can eat oatmeal and not have issues. We talked about the wheat and the gluten and stuff, but I think that not doing grain-based carbohydrates is better. So tubers, fruit, honey, those would be the main things. But also remember, like I said, that squash is a fruit.
Okay.
So,
how do you feel about rice?
So rice is a grain, and of the grains, rice is probably the most well tolerated. You have to be careful white rice versus brown rice.
They say that brown rice is better, but she's telling me that white rice is better.
Brown rice has a lot of heavy metals. So brown rice has a lot of arsenic in the hull.
Because of the shells of them, right?
Mm-hmm. So white rice has less. White rice still has metals. There are ways to minimize that. So if you're eating white rice, you can parboil it. There's actually been studies with white rice. So to parboil rice, you take the rice, you want to rinse the rice. Obviously, you probably want to get an organic rice. You rinse the rice a number of times. You might even ferment the rice overnight, maybe put it in apple cider vinegar. When you go to cook the rice, you want the water to be boiling, and you dump the rice in only for like a minute. Then you drain the water, and then you cook the rice again. That's parboiling the rice. That reduces the metals in rice. When I eat white rice,
Where the hell are all these metals coming from?
the ground, from the soil. The earth is full of them. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. These are just elements that occur on the earth. Lead occurs in the soil. Uranium occurs on the earth,
Is the soil of America, when it comes to planting crops or feeding animals, is it corrupted?
It's probably less nutrient rich, right? We talk about the topsoil and the amount of magnesium in topsoil. You talk about factory farming or monocrop agriculture. If you plant plants in the ground and then you just harvest them and you plant more plants, the nutrients are going one direction, right? They're going into the plant and the plant's moving off the ground.
But it's so deep. Like, why is
It's only the topsoil, right? The plant's roots only go so far.
And it doesn't
doesn't really recycle. So the topsoil becomes depleted in nutrients, and the plants can still grow, but there's a lot of evidence about the declining quality of food based on the quality of the soil it's grown in. Now, if you have a garden in your backyard, maybe not in Phoenix, but in other places, that soil could be better, and you could grow something, and it might have different amounts of metals or nutrients in it that are not harmful for you. But the metals in food are coming from the ground. So plants just tend to accumulate metals in their seeds. And so you see metals in things like beans. Chocolate is actually an unfortunate one. Chocolate has a lot of metals in it. Cadmium, pretty high in chocolate.
What kind of chocolate?
Dark chocolate, right?
Because milk chocolate I heard is terrible for you.
Well, milk chocolate is like less cacao and more sugar. So the more cacao, the darker the chocolate.
And that's better, yeah?
Well, it has more metals, right? So again, it's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm just trying to get on a path.
It's a balance, right? Like
It's a
if you can
balance,
find
right?
a balance.
I just want people to understand that, like, if you have high levels of heavy metals in your body and you eat chocolate every day because you love it, chocolate could contribute.
I want to take a page back because I know there's some gentleman out there that's listening and he doesn't
Testosterone.
have testosterone. So, first of all, what are like the first indications that you have low testosterone besides getting tested? And then two, say they did get tested, what do they do to build it back up?
Right. So again, we talked about low libido, erectile dysfunction, probably depression, lack of motivation, trouble gaining muscle mass. Those are probably the biggest ones for low testosterone.
I feel like that's what everybody nowadays complains about. But is that lack of not moving around?
It could be that also, right? So you say you go to get a test and your testosterone is low. And let's just define low as like anything less than 400 to 500 on your total testosterone.
And where do you want the number to be?
I mean, it should be probably 600, 700, 800 to be really fully, everyone's going to be a little different. And it also depends on your androgen receptors. So you have a hormone and then you have the receptors that receive it, that transmit the signal into the body. So there's receptors and then there's hormones. And we can talk about androgen receptors also. But how do you build it back up? You really overhaul your life, which is hard. But I think when it comes to testosterone, for most of us men, there's not much more important than like how we feel, our strength, our mental clarity, our recovery, libido, and sexual function. That's a big deal for men. That gets attention of any man if you're talking about that. So I think most men are willing to go to pretty great lengths to improve their testosterone. You start with the quality of your diet and the quality of your sleep. Those are the two biggest things. And the sleep quality is just sleep enough, sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, try and go to sleep at the same time every night. Like sleep is...
What happens if you travel a lot?
You have to just navigate it as best you can.
Does it matter how late you go to bed?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say in the literature. I think if you're consistently going to sleep at the same time, even if it's late, it's not ideal, but you can use one of the bands and just monitor your sleep quality and see how you feel. But if your testosterone is not great and you're going to sleep really late, you might try and move it earlier in the day. And you want to get up at about the same time and you want your sleep to be really high quality.
Do you have a cutoff on when you eat? Like, I have to be done by here.
Only in terms of my last meal of the day, like the biggest meal, because I don't want to be fully digesting when I go to sleep. And
is that bad for you to do that?
It's just hard to sleep. I think your body's doing too many things at once, right? And I think a lot of people see this. I don't use a sleep monitor. It's just too many things. I can kind of tell how I sleep when I wake up in the morning. But I think most people can tell, or if you use a band of some sort to monitor your sleep, usually you see declining sleep scores when you eat too close to sleeping or when you drink before sleep. So alcohol is going to interrupt your sleep architecture as well. So you have to really protect your sleep. And that is not sexy in like the traditional sense, but it's very sexy in terms of hormones and sexual performance and all these things. So yeah, I try to stop eating maybe 2 hours before I go to sleep with like the big meal, but I don't stress the idea of intermittent fasting or feeding windows. I don't worry about that so much.
I literally will sit him down around 2 o'clock and we'll have steak and rice and meat. Yeah. And then I'll go to bed around like 4.
Yeah, I heard you say that on the Barbara O'Neill podcast. I mean,
you know, it's so funny. He texted my team. He goes, "I know George is gonna sleep in today." I was like, "All right, this is getting bad. I gotta fix this.
I knew you were traveling. I knew you go to sleep at 4 a.m. because I heard it on the podcast.
We just travel so much that like I feel like my brain went to like I don't give a shit when I sleep or wake up as long as my work is done and I'm prepared and all that stuff. But I'm starting to realize that it's chipping away, and I'm in my early 30s and I feel like I'm 50, bro. Like I'm exhausted.
Well, I heard you say on the podcast with Barbara O'Neill, that's interesting. That's good that you're honest with yourself about being exhausted.
Honest.
You said on that podcast that you were like looking at your phone, you went to sleep at 11 o'clock one night.
Yeah.
And you felt really good.
Really good.
There's a hint for you. I mean,
I would love to do like a really like I would like to do like a thing with you where like we monitor, not is if you would even want to do it, but
of course
monitor like a diet, a workout plan in a theory for like 30 days
for sure,
and do blood work and go through like the whole 9 yards.
We totally can,
because I really want. This year, ever since I moved into this house, I've been really want to try to like hit discipline. I feel like if I look at my life, and not just my life, just my loved ones and gentlemen's like that are out in the world working hard, I think discipline kind of like took a step back in this generation. I think my father's generation really had discipline locked down. Like we're outside and my dad is like cleaning my backyard 8 times faster in the heat than I am. I'm like exhausted looking at this 60-year-old man outwork me. And he's like, "No, we're going to do this." I'm like, "Dude, I have a guy that I paid the guy to do that. Have him do that." He's like, "No, we do it right now." And he's like, just keeps going. I'm like, he's either on cocaine or he's just way, way, way more disciplined and healthier than me. And I just don't want to be one of the, because I feel like this generation, the men that are going to survive and conquer are the ones that have discipline and eat and sleep properly.
Work ethic.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the convenience thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't be lazy.
Discipline. That's if you look at my screen right now, there's all this crap there, but let me just try to, it literally says James 1:12, and as blessed is the man who endures temptation. And it basically talks about not just in heaven, but on earth, if you could just go through like, for example, if my friends are eating pizza and drinking Mountain Dew, I should be at the stage of my life being like, I want to be sharp next week. I'm not going to have this garbage. But me, I'm like, I'm the guy who ordered the pizza and brought it.
You got to think about what it means to you. Why would you make the hard decision? You have to hold in your mind like the prize.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you? Like, why would you do these things? You have to understand that every little decision you make contributes to your health and your performance long term. And if you can see that, none of these things are worth it, man. None of it's worth it. Like,
when's the last time you had a pizza?
Dude, I'm the last person you want to ask that. It's probably been 15 to 20 years.
Seriously?
Wow.
Yes.
Can I ask you something? Do you ever just kind of feel like you're missing out?
No, I don't, because I get to eat. What did I eat today? I ate grass-fed beef hamburger. I ate spaghetti squash. I put some raw cheese in it.
Burgers are my favorite thing in the world, but I'm assuming your burger is different than my burger.
I didn't have it. There was no bread on the burger. It was
Lettuce
just a beef.
Like I said, bro, you didn't have a burger, dog. You don't insult the burger, bro.
I had a beef patty.
Yeah, say that.
Did you get lettuce wrapped or no?
No,
lettuce?
just nothing.
You don't even have a lettuce wrap?
No.
You know why? Because he doesn't eat plant.
I don't eat plant
Right.
leaves.
Hey, okay, wait.
So
I'm so
wait.
sorry. Hold on. Would you rather have it with bread or plants?
I would rather have a lettuce than bread.
Of course. No
Get
me. But so something I would like to touch on, because I think it's important that in order to fully fix your gut, if you're trying to fix your gut, you're trying to fix your testosterone, whatever it might be that you're trying to fix, would you say that being consistent is very important, and that you can't like do a week and then have a cheat meal and then do another week and
I'd
do a
also
cheat
like
meal?
to add that she's talking the gut thing for me, not the testosterone thing.
No, not at all.
I'm an honest guy.
because you guys were
I'll prove it
speaking
to you
about
right
that.
now.
I believe you, bro. I believe you. So I think consistency is important, because when you do a cheat meal, you sort of frame the cheat meal as the reward. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, man, I'm eating clean, but then I really get to eat this thing that I really like. Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of have to reframe it in your mind and realize that your privilege is eating the healthiest foods. those are the best foods for you. Like the junk food is not the privilege.
Right.
Anybody in the world can eat junk food. Anybody in the world can go to KFC and eat fried chicken or Burger King. Like that's not the privilege. Very few people have the means or the discipline or the awareness of their priorities to intentionally create healthy meals. And these meals are not like we're eating rabbit food here, guys. We're not talking about like pellets of food, you know. We're not talking about like grape nuts or something. We're eating like steak and
Nuts
eggs.
are bad.
Yeah, right. But you know, remember that grape nut cereal? Did you ever see that? It's like these little rocks.
I was more like a Cocoa Puffs type
all
of
right,
guy.
yeah, Cocoa Puffs. Yeah, we're not eating like bland foods.
Yeah.
You know, you can eat fruit, you can eat honey, you can eat sweet potatoes with butter. Like these are decadent foods. And when you include a cheat meal, you're kind of sabotaging, I think, the way that you're framing it. And this came up on the podcast with Barbara O'Neill too. Some foods affect your physiology for longer than just the meal, especially if you're gluten sensitive. So you eat gluten, then it can really it can affect your immune system for weeks after you eat it, even once or twice. So it's just some of these foods have long lasting ripple effects. They're not necessarily magnified, but they persist. So I think the longer that you can do good, the better you'll feel, and you'll get more of that signal, and it helps with the behavior. I'm not saying you never eat pizza, or you never have a drink, or you never, just eat a burrito with your friends. But I'll tell you one thing which will be really powerful if you can get to this point, is that the cleaner you make your diet, the more you will notice when you vary the diet. And that will be a very powerful teacher for you. And you will think, whoa, I feel horrible. Or
that happens to me.
I feel so
I'm
much
an idiot.
different.
I just stick there. It's kind of like, it's bad for you. And then you get away from it, and obviously you feel better, but then you taste the again with your friends, and you're like, I feel terrible, but then your friends bring around the next day, and you're like, all right. And like, it's just like a bad habit that you get into.
But so
community is important, George. I just want to mention this.
Yeah.
Like the way that
who
people
you hang out with.
Yes, you're the sum of the 5 people, and the most successful dietary interventions I've seen have been community-based interventions. There was one, I think it was called the David Project. It was at a big church. And they got people in the church to kind of agree to all eat healthier, and these small groups in the church all encourage each other. And if everybody in your tribe, quote unquote, is eating healthy, then everybody's saying, George, did you what kind of apple do you like from the store? Or did you try this chicken with rice or lime, or did you try this dish? And if people around you are eating healthfully, that's so much easier. But if people around you that you value their opinion in your tribe, if they're eating unhealthy, man, you're kind of screwed. It's hard to be the guy that's on the outside, on the outs, like, oh, guys, I'm going to eat healthy. And they're thinking, I mean, that's historical. Like, humans don't like that. Like, you're in our tribe, bro. You got to come and eat this pizza to be a part of this. We got to like support each other here.
Yeah. I mean, I can't get over the fact that like literally not even 12 hours ago, I was sitting where you were sitting eating Mountain Dew and pizza. Like, and by the way, the whole box is for myself. Like, I'm the dude that orders a box, and they're like, oh, you got so much pizza. I'm like, yeah, we all have our own boxes. Like, it's not good. I got to
just so
definitely
people know,
change
12
it.
hours ago was 3 a.m. or 4
Yeah,
a.m.
exactly.
Exactly, actually, exact time.
It's not, yeah. What were you saying? We can come back to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was about to say something. I do have a different question, though, so we could go to that. I know that the name of your podcast is called The Fundamental Health, and I would love to know if you had to make a short list of your absolute fundamentals, what would they be for people?
So I think it's food quality over quantity. And what I mean by that is some people try and lose weight by cutting calories. And this is the idea of Weight Watchers, points. I'm going to count my calories. This is a step in the right direction, but I don't think it works long-term unless you improve food quality. So you can see, remember that show, The Biggest Loser? Mm-hmm. Something like 90+% of people in The Biggest Loser gained all the way back.
Wow.
That's so funny you brought that up.
Gain the weight back, and we know this.
So I had somebody that like I love, they were like, oh, if you just count your macros, and if you eat this, like if you eat less than what, and then I was like, oh, I can eat anything. And they got so excited, they leaned into it, like, dude, you can have anything you want. You could go to McDonald's if you want. And then right there, I was like, that don't seem right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't tell me that, like, as long as you stay in these numbers, you could have In-N-Out and Burger King and all that stuff. Because then I would be skinny right now.
Well, you can lose weight doing that. So I could create a diet for you that's McDonald's, that's low calorie, and you'll lose weight. I guarantee you.
Do it.
But you will. But you
stop talking about it. Do it.
But you will be hungry. and you will suffer. And hunger is a really powerful signal in our brain.
Is that because of the sugar?
Well, you'd be hungry probably because of all these. This is what processed food does to us, and there's clear studies that show this.
Talk to us.
So there's and this is a study where they actually put people in the hospital and they only feed them foods that they provide. So they study people really carefully, and you can give people the exact same amount of calories, but they're allowed to eat as much as they want, but they put plates in front of two groups of people. One group of people gets, say, 800 calories for dinner, and it's all unprocessed food. Maybe it's salmon or chicken or beef and broccoli and rice and potato. The other group gets 800 calories of processed food, so a burger, and they match the two groups for saltiness, for protein, fat, carbohydrates. And this processed food group consistently asks for more food. The same amount of calories they're trying to match for, macronutrients, protein, fat, calories, salt, sugar, palatability. They're matching for as much as they can. The processed food group consistently wants more food, and over the course of a 2-week study, they gain 4 pounds because they eat 500 calories more per day. So if I can just only give you I only give you 1 Big Mac a day and half a Coke, you'll lose weight, but you won't be getting a lot of nutrients. You will be accumulating other problematic things in these foods. We can talk about seed oils and why I'm not a fan of those and how they kind of accumulate in your body. They're present in a lot of processed foods, and you will be miserable. You'll just be hungry all the time, and I guarantee you that the minute I turn my back, you're going to sneak something. You're going to break out of this calorie prison because you're going to be miserable. This guy's a tyrant. He's only giving me 1 Big Mac and half a Coke a day, and I'm losing weight, but I feel horrible. There is another way, which is eating better quality foods, and they don't have to be quite as crazy about the calorie restriction because you will have satiety. Hunger is the enemy. Hunger is a really hard thing to ignore as humans. We don't like pain and we don't like hunger. In a lot of ways, we perceive hunger as a pain. It's just, people say, I have hunger pains. People get hangry. If you're hungry, that's a very uncomfortable place to be.
Hangry, me and my dad are the worst.
Yeah.
Nicest people in the world. If we don't have bread in time, we'll kill you.
Yeah, this is not a good place to be. You're telling me that you're going to restrict calories for the rest of your life when you get that hangry. You're lying to yourself.
Also, I like that you said that you picture the weekend meal as the prize. And that might mess you up because when the weekend's done, you're like, God, I have to wait another 7 days.
Right.
You're like, well, what is Sunday going to do? And then Sunday becomes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the Friday comes, you're like, it's the weekend.
And it's the celebration, right?
Yeah.
The celebration is, I'm celebrating. I'm going to have pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the completely wrong framing for parents and for adults, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys are going to have kids. And I'm not going to tell you how to raise your kids, but if you frame the reward as a kid with a cookie, man, you're kind of setting them up for a problem. But all of us have grown up that way. A lot of us have grown up that way, and we think the reward is a cookie. Well, guess what? I'm an adult now. I have responsibility. I can eat cookies all the time if I want. I'm just gonna eat cookies.
Exactly.
Well, where does that get you? And
I didn't have a bad diet. It's so funny. In my pantry, we had a walk-in pantry. We had all the chips, all the cookies, all the sodas, all the stuff, and I didn't want them though because my mom cooked 3 times a day. So we would have home cooked meals. It wasn't until I was an adult by myself, living on my own, that I was too lazy to cook or do any of that stuff, which I'm going to teach my kids how to cook for themselves. I think that was the missing step because when I was in the separation of a mama bear or a good wife, and I had no way to cook for myself, I didn't know what I was doing. I went to the McDonald's, I went to the Subways, I went to all that stuff. And I think that's where my addiction grew. It was just take my money, give me my food. And then I just got set in a bad habit. But when I was a kid, it would all be in front of me. And I wouldn't need it. I was never hungry, nor did I thirst for that type of stuff.
We got to mention this too, because I know people are going to ask. Eating healthfully is not necessarily more expensive either. This is the main thing that I get pushback on.
Ooh, that's a good thing, because you know what? You got to talk to my bank account then, because I disagree with you. I go to Whole Foods and they take my whole account.
That is not true, and you know why?
Why?
Because when you go to Taco Bell with Cave and you guys spend $80 on getting things and getting the Postmates because you guys are chilling at home, or when you're going out to dinner,
Bell.
You know what I mean? And it accumulates.
She just went.
When you go to a nice dinner and you spend
exposed you, bro.
And you spend $200
Yes,
on a really nice meal, but then you could have spent on a whole week's worth of groceries for $200.
Yeah. I think if you actually do the math, George, and you actually are honest about your finances, you'll see that it's not.
Okay.
Because
well, I'm sorry.
I've been to you're out. You're out of this podcast. No, I've been to the stores, and look, I think everyone is going to come at this at a different financial space. I think that I've done videos, $15 a day. And I understand that some people can't afford 15 or 15 is kind of their...
$15 a day is great.
I know, but I know that there's some people for which $15 a day is a lot of money to spend on food.
Where are they eating less than $15 a day?
I mean, that's like $450 a month, right? So for some people, that's still kind of tough.
But dude, you go to Subway. It went from $5 footlong to $6 6 inches.
I know. Yeah.
So like, where are they getting their food from?
I don't know whether... I don't know.
Beans and rice?
Ramen, beans and...
Top ramen, got you.
There's no
but that's
nutrients
still unhealthy though.
Yeah, but you can do. So I went to Costco, and you can eat a pretty darn healthy diet for $15 a day at Costco. So I'm just saying that like it's doable. You know, you could definitely do 30 or 20 or whatever you want to spend. I probably spend I definitely spend more than $15 a day on my food because it's a priority for me. But I want people to understand that this doesn't mean that you have to spend a ton of money. And because you had the response, you had the same knee-jerk response. No, I go to Whole Foods. You don't have to shop at Whole Foods. You can shop at Aldi. You can shop at Costco. Sprouts is super affordable. There's lots of places. You don't have to eat ribeye steak every meal. You can do ground beef. There are totally affordable ways to do this. I just want people to understand that I don't want that to be an impediment for them in their mind because they think like, I can't eat it, it's too expensive. And then when you actually do the math between going out and junk food, it's way more expensive to do that. And then you're paying the piper long term, right? How much is your diabetes costing you in terms of quality of life or cancer?
Okay, so that's where this kid hit me. I was at Air One, and I used to make fun of anybody who's at Air One. I was like, bro, you're dumb. And you only being here to either one, try to get a chick, or two, look like a baller, bro. Like you're just dumb. And I don't ever go to the like spend to get friends or stuff like that. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna go see if there's actually a healthy alternative. Like maybe I do need to spend that money. And when I got to the checkout, it was so expensive, bro. And I looked at him, I was like, bro, I just got raw milk for like $30. Like, what is this? What's going on here? And he looked me in my eyes. He goes, either pay for it now with health foods or pay for it later with medication.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, take my money.
That's a cashier. He's on it, man.
Yeah. By the way, he needs to get promoted.
Props to the Air One cashier. Remember his name? Who was it?
I'm not going to give him. I'm not going to give him that.
We'll give him props.
I don't remember his name. But yeah, no, that was a really good like thing that kind of I reflected on because I'm like, yeah, you will pay for it.
But you don't even have to go to Air One. You could do it at Safeway. You know, you could do it at Aldi. You could do it at Costco. You could do it at Sprouts. You don't. Air One is like it's a scene.
Yeah, it definitely is a scene.
Yeah, you don't have to do it there. You don't have to go to Whole Foods.
Let's talk about protein.
Yeah.
I wasn't into taking protein shakes. I kind of like stopped doing that. And then when I just recently, like 2 weeks ago, just started taking protein shakes every day, I feel like more dense and way more energy. And I feel like two of me before. One was like very fatigued and one is not. How serious is protein shakes to you? And what kind of protein do you take?
So I don't do protein shakes, but I see the utility of it. And for you, it makes a lot of sense. It's simple. It's easy. You can make protein plus raw milk or juice or water and basically blend it with a banana and you have a meal. That's great. And it's just the thing to consider is the quality of the protein, the additives, and the weird stuff in the protein powder. But I see the utility. We're kind of back to what we talked about earlier. I would always opt for the food if you can.
But isn't that food? You just blend it.
It is, but like when you have a protein powder, there is some processing of it, right? So I think that like
Got it.
It's not like so. For instance, whey protein, right? It's not milk. It's not a full glass of milk. They've separated the whey protein from the milk, and there's not as much calcium and all these things. So there's components of milk that are missing from whey protein. And if I'm in a pinch or I'm traveling, I will do a protein shake from time to time. But generally, I see it as like, if I'm prepared and I'm eating steak, that's a better choice. But I think that there's a utility for this for people. And I can imagine on the go, post-workout, pre-workout, there's a lot of utility for this. I just want people to know that like, just understand the quality of the protein. My issues with protein powders are that a lot of them have significant amounts of heavy metals. This has been shown time and time again. And the plant-based proteins actually have more heavy metals. A lot of proteins are contaminated with BPA.
I'm sorry, 1 second.
I don't want to have the whey.
No, George, take this protein. It's so much better for you.
Okay, you want to show him the protein that you use?
No.
Okay.
Right. So they're contaminated with BPA also. So BPA is bisphenol A, endocrine disruptor, heavy metals. You just got to know the quality. Not every protein is horrible. Some of them are better than others. Like, get a good one.
What's this protein?
So I wanted to build a company. This is Lineage. This is my stuff. I brought it for you, right? So this is...
Can I see it?
Meat sticks, yeah. So this is our animal-based protein.
So wait, you don't believe in protein shakes, but you supply protein shakes?
Because I know people want this, and I understand that I can create this in my ethos for people.
Wow, that's honest.
Yeah.
That's
so you can
honest.
give them a better source of
Yes,
protein.
and so I built
Could you
this.
grab my protein that's under the counter? Do you know where it is? It's in that. I want to just compare.
Oh, and grab the next to it. There's also. You're gonna have to tell me. Oh, I'm sorry.
So look at the ingredients in that.
Yeah,
right?
I want to break this down because
The middle. Yeah.
I want you to tell me what's in this versus the other one.
Yeah.
Because, bro, like, I'm just real stupid when it comes to this type of things. Like, I used to think I knew a lot too, which is hilarious.
We have a plant one and a whey one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. 'cause
Okay, so I want you to kind of go through, and no shots at these companies.
We could.
I mean, damn, like there are shots, but like, I want you to like tell me what is not good about this and what is good about this. But be honest. I know this is your product.
Right.
I want you to break it down in an intellectual way, so that way people like me that have no guidance in the health
Right.
community could
So let's look at this
deter
one real
from
quick.
that stuff. Yep. Here's the plant one.
Awesome.
Well, that's just in your eyes. That's just like not good because it's plant. You don't like plants.
It's not good because it's plant protein, and then we can look at other stuff. So
What's the
this is a whey protein. I used to do this when I was in college. So I started lifting weights when I was in college, and I've been exactly here, man.
Yeah.
Right. So this is whey is from milk, and whey is a very bioavailable protein. It's a good protein source, and this is a whey protein isolate. There's also whey protein concentrates. It's probably a very bioavailable protein for your muscles. The issue that I have with a lot of these is if you read the other ingredients, you have natural flavor, 500 milligrams. What is that? I don't know. I have no idea. Like,
Me neither.
Natural flavor can be a lot of
But
things.
it's natural though.
Yeah, but
No.
it doesn't necessarily. They can do weird. They can
It's
do,
not natural.
They
can
say
do-
natural flavors, but then it'll be like I don't
Isn't
know.
that illegal? Wait, hold on. Is that illegal?
They can do weird. They can do
get away with
fugazi
it.
stuff with natural flavor.
Fugazi.
Fugazi stuff.
All right, so it's
And then-
not natural then.
I'm sure there's a lot of chicanery here with natural flavor. Who knows? Maybe
enough.
it's not so bad. Second ingredient is xanthan gum. Anytime I see a gum, I worry about people's guts. You know, xanthan gum. There's not a ton of medical literature to suggest that it's like yet been shown to be harmful, but I just don't like gums. So that one you're holding is Lineage. We'll go through that one in a second. That's one I
Yeah.
built. There's no gums in there for that reason. There's no natural flavor in that one. So all the stuff I'm reading in here on this one is the stuff I didn't want in mine. The next ingredient is sucralose. Sucralose is essentially like an artificial sweetener. It's Splenda, and I worry about
Isn't that
artificial
something that you
sweeteners.
like though, Belle?
I don't use sucralose or
What's
Splenda.
the sugar that you like?
Oh, stevia or monk fruit.
Yeah, we can talk about those in a second. So those are quote natural sweeteners.
We'll get to that.
So sucralose is kind of like aspartame, ACE-K sucralose. There's definitely evidence in humans and animal models that this could affect satiety in weird ways. We don't actually understand what these are doing, and they definitely affect the way the gut flora is talking to each other. And then the last thing in here is sunflower lecithin, which is a sort of an anti-caking agent from sunflowers. So none of those are in the protein powder that I built. And again, I want people to get just something that's clean, and I just built it because people asked for it. So what's in that? It's grass-fed beef from the whole animal. Oh, I can just tell you. I don't.
Oh
need-
yeah, you created it.
yeah. So it's grass-fed beef, and that's just actually like the whole carcass. So there's collagen and muscle meat kind of in the protein, so it has a balance of amino acids.
So talk to me about this, the grass-fed beef. Now you say you'd rather eat it than take the powder of it. What's the difference from eating it versus this right here?
It's basically like dehydrated, so it's pretty close. But I think that, like when you dehydrate something, you're going to lose some of the nutrients. It can't preserve everything, but it's the best we can do.
And you were talking about that there was like thousands of things in it that we haven't necessarily.
Yeah, we don't even know what's in it. There, you look at the nutritional label and there's maybe 25 things on here, but there's 42,000 components in meat, which you're getting in a beef protein. And I have no problem with whey protein also. I think whey protein can be great. But then you have the organs. So we put the organs in there and you won't taste them. So there's liver, kidney, spleen, and pancreas in there. There's colostrum, which is an immunoglobulin-rich first milk from animals. A lot of people are excited about colostrum right now. Colostrum potentially helpful for the gut. There's a little bit of freeze-dried fruit. There's a little bit of sea salt. There's a little bit of coconut water powder. But there's no gums. There's no fillers. There's no artificial sweeteners in there. So there's no sucralose. There's no stevia. So this is a protein powder this is the protein powder that I eat when I'm traveling occasionally. And it's the way that I would want it. You just have to make a smoothie out of it with something like a banana or honey and raw milk to give it the flavor. But I would bet you that if you took this in water and yours in water, yours might taste better in the short term because it has this artificial sweetener. But I just worry about what the other things are doing in there. And then when I can build a protein powder, and this is a fun thing about being in this position, is I can know what's in that beef and I can test it for heavy metals. You know, what's the quality of the whey in this protein powder? Maybe they're going to tell you the certificate of analysis here and show you that they're testing for heavy metals. But everything that I'm going to make, I'm going to test for heavy metals and get stuff with the lowest amounts possible. So that's just like the way I wanted to build a protein powder.
Did you move your mic?
Yeah, that's the way I want to build a protein powder. Now we'll do this one. Okay, so this is made from pea protein, hemp protein, and organic goji berry. And the problem I have with pea protein is just that it's not as bioavailable as the animal-based protein. And then, it's got great branding. They left out the A. I think they misspelled it, but that's good marketing, you know? Plint. Plint. But I don't know. Do they show a certificate of analysis? What's the heavy metals in here? They have natural flavors in this one. They have chocolate. Again, not the end of the world, just know if the chocolate, what's the source of the chocolate? Does it have heavy metal testing? This has guar gum, so you have another gum. And again, it's like, is this causing
Why are they
gut
putting
issues?
gum in this stuff?
I think it makes it creamier. You know, the mouth feel of these things is important. It's like I know you want some more meat sticks.
Yeah, stop, chill out. Tommy. Beat it. Tom,
Go.
Oh, he smells it. You got a meat stick.
Call him.
He pulled out one of the Lineage meat sticks. Yeah. So
He's just snacking on his...
he's snacking on one of the Lineage meat sticks.
That's that right there.
That's this one, yeah.
When would you use this product?
So I use this when I'm traveling, every time I travel on a plane and stuff.
What is this for? Is it protein or is it just like...
It's protein, yeah.
So what's the separation I'm trying to ask?
So this one is a protein shake, and that one's just a meat stick. That's a snack.
How many of these do you have?
A day?
Yeah.
Or when I'm traveling, I'll eat like the whole bag on a plane.
And it's not bad for you.
No, it's great. That's just grass-fed beef and organs and basically salt and collagen.
Could you grab me the one that's open?
Which one would you say retains most of its nutrients? Because I know that if it's dehydrated or freeze-dried, it keeps 90%. So versus...
so this is air-dried. So that's closer to the original thing, you know?
Okay.
You want a piece? Come on,
I would love
let this be your first meat.
Listen, I haven't had meat in over 10 years. Like, I've lost count now, but I haven't had meat in over 10 years. So I don't even know where I would begin or how my stomach would react, or I don't know if I can get past the mental part of it.
You could start slow.
I'm going to be honest with you, bro.
What do you think?
Growing up, my friends would have like Slim Jims and all that stuff, and I took a bite and I looked at them like, you guys all belong in a trailer park. It's disgusting. It doesn't have that weird taste. Reed was actually explaining it in a good way. How would you explain this versus like all those other jerkies?
There's no weird aftertaste.
Yeah.
And it's not like grainy. It just tastes like real dried meat.
And I like that I could feed this to my dog. Because there's so many times I'm eating something. I know it sounds so stupid. But I want to give it to him. But Belle's like, no, you can't give him a flaming hot Dorito. He'll die. I'm like...
Yeah, no. And I even, like, for Tommy, like, his treats are literally just... dried chicken or dried beef. That's it. Like, that's the only ingredient that's dried, you know?
It's basically what these are. These are air dried.
Which is amazing.
So, yeah, this was fun to make too. It's just fun to make things that like don't exist in the market.
How'd you make this? Like, what made you come up with this?
Because the reason I made both of these things for this company Lineage is because they didn't exist. Because there was no protein powder that I could find that didn't have these gums and the artificial sweeteners. And there was no meat stick that I wanted to eat. If you go to the store and you get meat sticks, most of them are cooked. You know, like the other meat stick brands in the grocery stores, they're all cooked.
Wait, this is not cooked?
No, it's air dried for 5 days. It never goes above like 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
So this is raw?
Sort of.
But
it's like jerky.
But it's dried out. Right, like jerky's,
Yeah.
Jerky's raw?
Yeah, jerky, it doesn't really get cooked. Jerky just gets dried with air. Yeah. He's just, his brain is like boom right now.
Yeah, just so many.
He doesn't even understand.
So many.
Tommy's...
All right,
so
let's get into working out. What kind of workouts do you do?
So I surf every day in Costa Rica. I love being in the ocean, grounding, morning sunlight, and then just the
Thank you.
like the actual the paddling, the balance. I love balance sports. I like these things that activate my brain. Like I like slacklining. So I surf every day when I'm in Costa Rica, and then I'm getting back into jiu-jitsu a little bit and a little bit of Muay Thai and striking.
Same.
Yeah.
I just got back into it, and I shot on some kid, and he slid back, and all of my fingers went straight into the ground. Has that happened to you?
No.
Bro, I did jiu-jitsu my whole life growing up. When I got back into it, it was literally 1 week into it. And I can't, even if I hold my phone too long now, or if I close they hurt so bad, bro. It hurts so bad. And I
like
quit.
gluten, bro.
Immediately quit. Immediately quit. I was like, oh, dude, I'll just grab a pistol if I need the self-defense.
But I like the striking. I like the wrestling. So I'm
Yeah.
getting back into that in Costa Rica with a gym in town where I live. And then I do some body weight kind of calisthenics. I don't lift a lot of weights. I don't like lifting weights. Like today, what I do, I almost got arrested at the school, but I just went to a playground and I found a swing set and I did pull-ups. I'll hang and do kind of like L-sit type stuff. And then I did sprints.
Amazing.
I heard sprints, speaking of testosterone, I heard sprints is insane for testosterone. Like, sorry, I'm eating this. I'm so annoying. You know this is not cooked.
It's raw, bro. Air dried.
Sprinting is like really, really good for fat loss and testosterone. Do you know why?
I don't know the mechanism. I think that what I love about sprinting is just, I'm slow. I'm a slow runner, and I like that it's hard, but it's just intense for a short amount of time. I used to distance run. So when I was in college, I ran distance, not competitively. And then when I was after college, I started doing ultra marathons. So I was running like 50-mile races, which is crazy. I liked it because I got in the wilderness for a long amount of time. But I used to run so long, and now I just think, oh, forget it. I just want to sprint.
Yeah, I don't know how people. There's like a running high that people get addicted to.
There is a running high. The thing with running that I worry about for myself and for other people is just that it's a powerful medicine, often overused. You can easily kind of put yourself in this chronic overtraining or high cortisol state if you train too hard with running, and I was doing that for sure.
Doesn't it kind of wear and tear at your body too?
It can. I think it depends on how you strike the ground. So the form of the running, like forefoot striking versus heel striking, this is getting fairly technical, I think affects the way that your joints, my joints are fine.
So like this?
As
Just
opposed to
like
forefoot
impact?
striking. I think
Like
that
this?
yes. So my perspective is that the human body is meant, the mechanics of our ankle and our knee is meant to forefoot strike when you're sprinting and when you're distance running. And walking is a heel strike motor pattern. Running is a forefoot strike motor pattern. I can show you outside.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
But a
if
lot of
you're-
our shoes today,
Lace up.
you don't even need to. We'll go barefoot.
Dude, I'm fast. I know that you're gonna think I'm not, but like when I was a kid, I used to like compete and I was really fast. And then these YouTubers all gathered and they're all athletes. There was like hundreds of them that showed up. I made top 5.
Really?
And I ate pizza every day for that. I
don't
never
doubt it, man.
trained.
Some people
I'm
have
just
good
quick,
genetics.
bro.
I bet you're quick, bro. I don't doubt it. I think I saw that.
I feel like you're doubting it. Come outside.
You're good, bro, but look at your shoes. Look at your shoes. There's a huge heel on that shoe.
Yeah.
And that messes with our proprioception when we're running. So that's not the way we're supposed to be. You know, I like zero drop shoes.
Yeah,
kinda
so
like-
your
Oh
shoes.
dang!
The flatter shoes.
So you go into man. Okay.
So my ballerinas are good.
I know, yeah. These are just chilling shoes, but I brought shoes because you said we're going to do some stuff. We're going to go jungle, like desert adventuring in a second.
Yeah. We are. We're about to go. I'm gonna take them off roading.
Ooh, oh, you're gonna love it.
So question, do you also take this mindset that you have, and are you those type of guys that are like, no, I don't wear like fake clothing or like the plastic clothing? Do you follow
I
this
think about
type of
that.
pattern with your shampoos, conditioners, body washes?
Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
bro, okay, let's dive into this.
It's everything. I mean, again, I don't want it to be overwhelming for people, but we live in a strange world where there's a lot of affronts, there's a lot of insults to our hormones and to our health, and I try to be conscientious as much of the cycle as I can. So I'm thinking about the water that I'm drinking, right? Like I'm filtering my water. I'm not drinking tap water. I'm thinking about the clothes that I'm wearing. I'm not wearing plastic clothes. I'm wearing cotton. I think these have a little bit of stretch in them, but this is a wool shirt that I got on Amazon. You know, it's nothing fancy. And when I wear underwear, it's cotton underwear. Most of the time in Costa Rica, I'm just like commando in my shorts or in my board shorts. And when I'm showering, if I'm using anything in the shower, which I usually don't, I'm just going to use simple things, baking soda, apple cider vinegar, or products that are as clean as I can get.
You're a jungle boy.
I'm kind of a jungle homie.
Bro, okay, hold on. So you don't use shampoo, conditioner, soap?
No. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that like in Costa Rica, there's nothing. And I would just rather use nothing. I mean, I swim every morning for 2 hours in the ocean.
What made you go to Costa Rica?
I love to surf. And I think that So I didn't tell you this part of the story, but when I got out of college, I spent 3.5 months hiking from Mexico to Canada on the Pacific Crest Trail. Oh. So I've just always had this love of a wilderness and
outdoors.
Yeah, outdoors and nature and space. And
how funny is it that you're a social media guy?
Yeah,
you know what
right?
I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, I like to be outdoors, but I'm creating content for people that are indoors.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thing. You can do both, right? I have this little, this is interesting to say. So I also think about EMFs and Wi-Fi in my house. I'm not sure that we fully understand how much radio frequency EMF affects us as humans. I think the jury's still out on that. So at my house, I have a Wi-Fi router, but the Wi-Fi is off and I just have an Ethernet cord that comes out and goes into my computer. So that little tethering cord is amazing because I can create content that hopefully people find value, and I can live in the jungle and surf every day and hang out at the river and just send information packets through the Ethernet cord into the universe.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And so it seems like most of your workouts are based outside. You do that purposefully for the sun?
Well, I just don't like indoor lighting also, right? So again, I don't want this to be too much for people, but this is the stuff I think about. Like you were asking me today, you work out outdoors. I could have gone this morning and gone to a gym. I could have gone to Lifetime or found, whatever, LA Fitness. I don't even want to go under the blue light. It just doesn't make me feel good. It's flickering. I don't like the way it feels to work out under blue light now. If I have a choice, I'm not completely averse to it, but I'd prefer to have natural lighting. It just feels good to be outside in full spectrum light that's not flickering. Most of the lights that we use flicker. And I think this is one of the reasons our phones are so addictive, because it's a flickering light. You can't tell that it's flickering, but your phone is flickering. Your computer is flickering. And that attracts us as humans. It's like kids can't look away from television. I don't know if you've ever been driving on a road and had somebody come towards you at night with like the cheap headlights that flicker, or you can see them flickering, or there's a flickering light in the distance. We cannot look away from that as humans. There's just a programming in our brain that tells us to look at that. So I think so many of the devices we have are purposefully, not purposefully addictive for us because they're flickering, and who knows how this affects us.
Definitely addictive.
Yeah.
They're doing that for a reason.
Super addictive.
I want to talk about the sun because on the Barbara O'Neill episode, I was like, get that cancer juice away from me when it came to the sunscreen.
I heard the story. I wanted to talk
this is
about
hilarious, bro, because that got triggered and we not demonetized, but it was like it got what is it when it's like
flagged?
This is
fact check.
It got flagged and it was like this is false and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then that week I went to Lake Powell. And man, I got a badass sunburn, dude. It was so bad that I had to use sunscreen. So I sprayed that cancer shit on me. And I was laughing because I was like, man, the internet smacked me in the face and was like, shut up. And then the earth was like, shut up. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna maybe put the do you know I'm still hurting? Like that's why if you see this episode, I've been like moving around.
Really?
Because my sunburn.
This is super important. We got to talk about this. So I don't understand how they could fact check you on that, because there are multiple components of sunscreen that have been linked to harm in the human body. Like not everything in sunscreen, but like I think it's like octobenzone, avobenzone, oxybenzone. We know that these compounds that go on our skin are absorbed through the skin, excreted in the poop and the pee, and they affect us at a hormonal level. I have to look at the literature on cancer connection. That may not be proven yet, but these are in our bodies potentially causing harm.
Yeah.
And we know that a number of the components in the sunscreens are also definitely harming coral reefs also. So you got to protect like the whole ecosystem that you live in. Now, beyond that, there's this really fascinating set of anecdote on Twitter or X, whatever, of people who have eliminated seed oils from their diet, George. And they used to be super sensitive to the sun, and they no longer are. And this is not a randomized controlled trial.
Dude, I've never ever been like anywhere near allergic to the sun. I was in Arizona. I would be outside all the time. Never got a sunburn. Never got a sun rash. We went to Cabo San Lucas. Their sun is something ridiculous. Went out there, days, never got a burn, never got irritation.
That's weird.
But then when I lived on my own and I started eating outside, the sun started messing me
eating junk
up.
food.
Yes.
Yes.
Fast food. That's all I eat.
So this is really interesting. It's just an observation. This is an anecdote, but this is really fascinating hypothesis to
It's
generate.
like how the fish change colors. It has to do something with your skin.
Well, so the idea is that, so the hypothesis here is that these seed oils, so let's go back to seed oils too, because we didn't totally talk about this, but I think seed oils are at the center of this conversation around health food and non-health food.
I'm sorry to ask this.
I'm going to tell you.
What is seed oils?
Seed oils are corn, canola, sunflower, safflower, soybean, grapeseed. They're made from the seeds of plants. And if you've ever seen a seed oil factory, it looks like an oil refinery because it is an oil refinery.
But were you just saying that seeds are bad for us?
I'm telling you, seed oils are harmful for humans.
No, but in general, like, remember
From the seeds
Dr.
of plants.
Gundry, he would like deseed tomatoes and stuff.
Yeah.
Aren't you not supposed to have the seeds?
I don't think you're supposed to have the seeds, but seed oils are prevalent, pervasive in our food supply.
Okay.
They're the most common. I mean, you look at I don't know if you have junk food in the house.
Why
I'm
do they
betting
use
you
it?
do. It's cheaper. It has a preservative effect, and in the medical literature, it lowers cholesterol. But we can talk about why that's a challenging thing because it's not clear that it actually does anything. I think it does bad things for us while it's lowering cholesterol. It actually increases the propensity of cholesterol to become oxidized. So one of the worst things that can happen to your LDL cholesterol is for it to become oxidized. When LDL cholesterol becomes, quote, rusted, it's a much stronger risk factor for cardiovascular disease. When you eat more seed oils, your LDL becomes full of components of the seed oils, specifically linoleic acid, and that LDL becomes more fragile and it becomes oxidized more easily. So seed oils, corn, canola, sunflower, safflower, soybean, in all of the junk food, Doritos, McDonald's, like it's all cooked in seed oils. This is pervasive. This is probably one of the major drivers, I think, of illness in humans.
It's that spark for the LDL.
Eventually, yes. Eventually, yes, because components of the seed oils accumulate in our bodies. And I think that they gradually cause stress at the level of our membranes because there is a fatty acid in seed oils called linoleic acid, and it's a polyunsaturated fat. And what we know about this fat is that it's kind of stuck in your body. It takes 2 to 3 years based on the kinetic studies we have for this to get out of your body.
What about me?
I mean,
no, I'm being serious. What happens if I ate it so much? Is it going to be longer now? Because
no, but it's just if you stopped eating these things today, it would probably take over a year for your fat to completely remodel, 2+. So it's in the membranes of your cells. And what do we know about oxidation in membranes? That the more double bonds on a fat, which is when it becomes unsaturated, the more likely a fat is to become oxidized. So your body has to put things in membranes and use nutrients like vitamin E to protect against this oxidation. And what seems to happen is that over years and years of eating these oils, we could potentially deplete our vitamin E stores. And then the fats become very susceptible to oxidation and the membranes can become damaged very easily. Cell membranes, mitochondrial membranes, so organelles within the cells. And basically, I think there is compelling evidence, and I strongly believe that seed oils are one of the major drivers of metabolic dysfunction in humans at the level of mitochondria and other membranes because they accumulate in our cells and it causes issue. The other thing to consider is historically, we would never have had this amount of these oils or the components of these oils. So the average American eats 5 to 6 tablespoons of seed oils per day.
Is this okay? You know how you look at videos and pictures of people back in the day and they're all skinny?
They're all skinny.
Is that because of
I think it's a huge contributor.
Dang, dude.
I think it's what has changed. What has changed?
Seed oils.
Yeah.
Seed oil. I mean, other things have changed too.
And fast food and all that.
And they
stuff.
compare the same things that you buy in the store. They'll show you like the ingredients of that same product a few years ago versus now, and the list has doubled.
Right. So many ingredients. So it's impossible to pin it exclusively on seed oils. Glyphosate has become an issue, pesticides, right? But think about it this way. In 1900, 98% of the fat we ate was beef fat, butter, and lard. Heart attacks, almost unheard of. And
diabetes was almost unheard of. Alzheimer's is like the fastest growing thing. Yeah. And now they're calling it diabetes 3 or something like that?
Because it's an insulin resistance in the brain. So diabetes is insulin resistant. So again, this is just an association, but it generates a hypothesis, which I think is supported by the medical evidence. Where is the evidence that animal fats are bad for us? 120 years ago, that's all we were eating, and we were much healthier. And so something went wrong. Seed oils are a very, very likely culprit, in my opinion. They are a huge different thing than we've been doing, and they're in everything, right? And there's a lot of literature on them. The problem is that the literature is confusing, and the studies are not always well done. But I think that if you just use intuition, we can say, look, these are a new thing. We've never eaten them in the past. They're highly oxidized even when they come to us because they're fragile oils to begin with. And then to make the oils, they heat them, they refine them, they bleach them. They have extracts of hexane from, benzene and other things in them, heavy metals, forever chemicals, PFAs are in these oils. So basically it's like, they used to be used as engine lubricant, and that's the way they should have stayed. They had a strong role in World War II because they were used on ships to lubricate parts, so they stay slippery when they're wet.
That's crazy. And they were like, let's eat them.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so
And,
insane.
and there's interesting history about how they became incorporated into the food supply, like what was going on. So Procter & Gamble used to make Crisco, and the American Heart Association, which is a huge sort of contributor to the way we think about food and health and heart attacks, was originated in like the late 1940s. And the origin story of the American Heart Association, they were failing, and they got a huge grant from Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble makes Crisco. They got the equivalent of $30 million today. So they got $1.7 million in 1948, I believe, from Procter & Gamble. And then the American Heart Association begins promoting polyunsaturated fats and seed oils and telling us that saturated fats are what causes heart disease.
Yeah,
when we've been eating saturated fats for hundreds of years with no issues. So again, there's some chicanery going on here. Like what's the truth?
Right.
Yeah.
There's some weird, funny stuff.
And going back to the sun for a second, because we were speaking about, like the chemicals that you put on your skin. How do you feel about coconut oil? Because I've heard that there's a component in coconut oil that can be good for helping you with the bad things from the sun, but then you get the good things too.
Yeah, coconut oil and tallow. So tallow is beef fat. These both have like a small amount. Like you can't technically call them SPF, but they might be SPF 3 or 4.
Okay.
So it's probably good for your skin to put these things. I mean, historically, women and men have put olive oil on their skin for probably the same reasons for a long time. But thanks for bringing me back here, because I think the seed oils, just like they accumulate in every cell membrane in our body, what if you have cells in your skin that accumulate excess linoleic acid, a fragile polyunsaturated fat that's more easily damaged from the sun? It's just a hypothesis, but I think it makes a lot of sense that we are becoming more sensitive to the sun while we are becoming less healthy because we are eating more junk food full of more seed oils. There's evidence in animal studies that's very clear, but we have never done a study on this in humans. We've never looked at it. But when you give animals more of the seed oils, they develop more skin cancers. So again, this is all quite controversial, and it's just, there's no clear evidence because we haven't done the studies. And the Western medicine, I think this is where Western medicine is failing us, because they, instead of asking the questions and admitting that this is a knowledge gap, they just censor anyone asking questions to the contrary. So my suspicion, George, is that you're more sun sensitive now because you need to change what's in your membranes. And there's tons of people, hundreds of people on Twitter talk about this. Oh, I used to burn and now I don't. That's a really fascinating possibility.
It makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Do you think there's going to be some repercussions when it comes to procreation with the way that this generation's been eating and moving?
I mean, we have a fertility crisis.
Really?
Yes. Fertility rates are...
Okay, so do you think because they're trying to do this population control, do you think they try to hit our foods?
Who says we're trying to do population control? We're going to look at Spiritoria. You're like trying to feed me there.
I mean, bro, there's so many times that they're on stages and they're saying that the population is a problem. They have to decrease the population.
I mean, I think that the World Economic Forum may have said things like that before. It's certainly possible.
Because think about it, they're not going to kill you, but they're going to make sure that you can't procreate.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. And I think that, I mean, a number of people have pointed out the fact that there is kind of a coming population crisis. Certainly in some countries it looks to be very bad. From what I've heard, China has a real issue with this because of their...
And now they're like, yo, you can't have more than one son.
I think it's debated, but I think that there's a real potential. There's a problem here. So yeah, I think fertility is where...
We'll save these conversations for Alex Jones.
Yeah. Fertility is really ground zero, right? Because if we can't have healthy children, what are we doing as humans?
Yeah, but also it's just kind of like... You can't blame the government. I know it's like, well, I guess at a certain level you could, but like also it's like you have to step up as a parent or a guardian and like garden your garden. Like I think like my mom did a really, really amazing job by making sure that her son didn't miss out. So like on the weekends, she'd be like, yeah, I'll take you and your friends to go get McDonald's, stuff like that. But don't ask me that from Monday to Friday. Like that's home cooked meals, blah, blah, blah. So watching the way my parents raised me, it's my fault that I stepped out and started eating junk food, right? So it's a nurture and nature type of thing. I think we get so comfortable pointing the blames at like our governments or everything else.
Our responsibility.
Yeah, it's our responsibility. And also if enough of us stood up for this, then the government would pivot because they're like, oh, this is what the people want. We should pivot this way.
Maybe. I think that at a governmental level, there's a lot of money against us. There's a lot of money in
but let me give you an
food.
example. If we started buying this and they knew that people want to spend money on this, they would go towards this.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think so.
Profit
Unless they're
margins.
trying to like, do the Bill Gates thing where we'll give you the disease and then the cure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility too. But so this is an interesting thing because we talked about this earlier. So I don't really look at politics that much, but I think that one of the most glaring problems we have is that the government is not really making the right decisions in terms of how they're supporting people's food spending. So food stamps, there's no restriction on what you can buy with food stamps. Why?
Yes, there is.
Well,
you can't buy cigarettes and alcohol with
I'm
it.
sorry. No, in terms of food, you can buy any junk food you want with food stamps, right?
Well, it's just food. You can't tell a man what he can't eat or cannot eat.
Oh, really?
You know what I'm saying?
But then the government is also giving people Medicaid, and so they're paying for their health care. And so to me, this is a really interesting thing that like...
It goes from this pocket to this
right.
pocket.
So food stamps, right? Like, okay, I fully understand, and I think there's an argument for the government helping some people out with a food purchasing, but is there really an argument that like they should be able to eat Doritos with that? Like then the government has to pay for their healthcare more on the back end. So that doesn't make sense to me. Like give them food stamps, but let them buy chicken and fish and pork and sausage. Or
Also, I think
sustain
it's just like it interferes with their freedom. Like nothing's worse than having like help from the government, but the government's like, don't eat this, but then you're like, but I want that. Like it's
so hard.
I know it is, but I think it's great that they at least are capping like the cigarettes and alcohol type of thing.
Yeah, I meant with the food.
Yeah, I think.
But like, let's talk about that for a moment. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, we can agree that cigarettes are harmful for people, but we can't agree that processed food is like cigarettes in some ways. It's equally. I mean,
I just actually had this conversation with my mom.
Similarly addictive, right?
No. I literally just had this conversation with my mom. I go, why do I feel guilty smoking marijuana, but I feel no guilt drinking like a 2-liter Mountain Dew? Right? And you sit there, and by the way, like if I'm smoking a J in a parking lot, I guarantee you a lot of people look at me like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? But if I'm just pounding a Mountain Dew and eating a pizza, which is going to lead me to diabetes, or I'm going to be having Alzheimer's, or God forbid, grow cancer cells in me. If I'm eating all this junk food, we just walk by and say, hey, can I have some? But with the J, you're like, whoa, buddy, what's going on here?
This one's been normalized.
Yeah, it's all
so
about
okay.
how you're programmed to believe in what is good and what is not good.
Yeah. I mean, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee, so there's 20 members of the committee, and it's been published in the medical literature that 19 of the 20 members of the committee have ties to pharmaceutical and processed food industry. So 95% of the people who make the U.S. dietary guidelines have some financial incentives around pharmaceuticals and ultra-processed food industry.
I believe it.
And then recently, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee came out and tweeted, we're not convinced that processed foods actually are causing obesity in humans. We need more evidence. Yeah, so this is...
Did they put
Look at a
cereal?
picture, bro.
They put like boxed cereal at the top of the food chain or something like that. I saw like the health guide. I'm like, what?
So this is how they justify including Cocoa Puffs for food stamps.
This is the only reason why Russia is beating us and that type of thing. Like, for real, like Putin was like, nah, you're not putting this in the food. And a lot of people look at him like he's an evil man, which I'm not going to get into the politics thing, but at least he gives a shit about what his citizens are eating and putting into their body versus like letting America kind of just deal with it. And like,
I mean, not everybody has the wherewithal to make good food decisions. So I think that if you're not paying for your food, like, we should say, this is just my perspective. Like, let's just make some healthier choices here. Like,
I was in Sweden. No, Switzerland. I was in Switzerland, and this is the first time that it ever clicked that I might be doing something really bad for me. I was hanging out with these gentlemen. Now, these gentlemen are very successful. They're all billionaires, and I'm getting introduced to their family. And I'm talking to one of their sons, and he asks me, like, what do I eat? And my natural response is like In-N-Out, like all this stuff. And I was like, oh, what fast food do you go to? And the father grabbed his son. He's like, no, that's not for us. Like that. And he looked at me like I was giving his son poison. And he's like, my son will never touch that. It's not for our family, like that. And I was like, oh, these rich people are like on some shit.
They didn't even have fast food in the town, remember?
None.
There's
Zero.
no fast food in the town.
Zero. In the whole town. It was Gestad. Zero.
Discipline. I mean, intentional choices.
But also they removed your options.
That's great.
The European countries, they like ban like a lot of, which is so good, like in the foods, they ban certain like ingredients for foods, even for like makeup and products. Like there's a lot of products that we are allowed to have here that are banned in Europe.
You look at cereals and a lot of the dyes in cereals, which have been linked to behavioral issues.
Like
in kids, red 40.
Red 40.
Yeah, blue 5 or yellow 5, yeah. And they're not allowed in Europe, but they're allowed here. So There's a lot of these things.
And is that the natural coloring you guys are talking about?
No. That's not natural coloring. That's not natural flavor. That's different. But these are actual food dyes and things.
Like, you know when you eat Fruit Roll-Ups? And it's like red and blue.
Yeah.
Fruit
Loops.
Like Fruit Loops and
I literally just saw a TikTok of a mom saying that she took her kids off of like the food dyes
Roman Atwood. That was
Brittany?
Yeah.
Oh, it was
That was Brittany and Roman. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that one. I saw someone else. It was a random person I didn't know. But I'm really glad that they did that too. And they saw the behavior in their kids change, like their tantrums.
How cool is that? But if you took your kids to a doctor, what are they going to get? ADHD meds, depending how old they are.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, it's so funny because like I would have Fruit Loops every morning.
I used to crush that stuff
every morning, and like a couple bowls while watching Tom and Jerry. And then in school, I was like, and they're like, "Dude, pay attention." I'm like, "Dude, I'm hearing a buzzing right now. I can't hear what you are saying." And they put me on ADD medicine, and they put me in a resource class. It was the whole time was the cereal.
I mean,
and then they wonder why they're serial killers.
Stop.
Just kidding.
But I mean, look I grew up. My dad's a doctor. My mom's a nurse. I got junk food.
Jesus Christ, your genetics is amazing. All of you guys are doctors.
We had TV dinners, and I had eczema, and my parents didn't even, and they gave me meds too. Like nobody's saying. Just think about
wait.
food.
I would love to know this. How does your family feel about the way that you're like kind of looking at life, or are they are they a part of the mafia where they want to?
No, they're
prescriptions?
So I have a younger sister, and she has 2 kids, and she's really good about it. She's like really intentional about what they eat. Not perfect, but she's doing great. Yeah. And my dad and my mom are both now 74. My dad's a retired doctor, like I said. And I think that he's improved his diet. It's not awesome. He still eats bread because it's hard to change your behaviors at 74 years old. And he has a ton of health issues and hasn't really improved his quality of diet enough. But I think that they don't give me any flack about it. I think they're curious and what's this Instagram thing you do? You know, they don't really understand what I do, but they're definitely curious. My mom is pretty darn good. She's pretty good about food quality. So they've definitely improved over the years, but they did the best they could. They just didn't know. Like, this is the problem. And going back to medical school, your doctor, to the people listening, is not taught to think about food.
I feel like you don't use toothpaste.
I don't use toothpaste.
I knew it.
What do you use?
I know. Well, you just brush, don't you?
You're guessing that? Do you think I have bad breath?
No.
Yes. That's why my dog is like, I get along with this guy.
Do you use
he smells like meat.
Do you use activated charcoal?
I don't use anything on my teeth. I just brush with water.
Could you smile? Jesus.
So I didn't.
Dude, your teeth look amazing.
I haven't brushed today. I usually.
You don't have cavities?
No. I just
probably because you don't have sugar and stuff like that.
Well, I do have sugar from fruit, but I think cavities are related to absence or inadequate fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin K2, vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin D.
Why are you against toothpaste then?
So a lot of toothpaste has fluoride, and I have concerns about some of the literature with fluoride.
Fluoride's in your water, though.
Fluoride is in your water, and there's some.
You can't clean that out, though, right?
You can clean that out of your water if you use reverse osmosis and certain filtering things, but a normal, like a Brita filter, doesn't get out fluoride from your water.
And what is your concerns with fluoride?
There's a number of studies that associate fluoride with lower IQs in kids, and then there's animal studies that show that there's calcification of the pineal gland with fluoride that gets better when you remove the fluoride.
Is that the third eye that I'll talk about?
That's what people talk about. Now, who knows?
Now, this is getting into the Illuminati whole side.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it does. Because they say that they make you brush your teeth, and this is a conspiracy. Oh. They say they make you brush your teeth with fluoride so they could better control you.
I saw you do this.
There's something.
There is. I did that in a Fluffy episode. and then Ryan Garcia, the boxer, said something about the Illuminati and then dragged me into it. So we got so paranoid. We cut that whole scene out with me and Fluffy. But damn it, I wish I kept it in, bro.
There are small amounts of fluoride in the soil and small amounts of fluoride in food, but the amount that we get from toothpaste and drinking water is much, much more.
But that's what makes your teeth super white.
It's not what makes your teeth white. It in kids who have nutrient deficiencies, it can prevent cavities because it has, I believe, antibacterial and or hardening properties of the teeth. So yes, it prevents cavities in kids, but at what cost? And the reason those kids are getting cavities in the first place is because they're eating a garbage diet.
Got it.
So cavities are not the result of eating honey. I mean, honey has actually been shown to improve oral health. You know,
honey is very healthy for you.
Honey is actually good for your mouth. I mean, honey's full of sugar, and it improves oral mucositis in kids. So kids who get inflammation in the mucosa of the mouth, it improves that. Gingivitis with honey is improved. It actually decreases cavities in some studies. So it's not just sugar contributing to cavities. It's sugar plus fat-soluble vitamin deficiency, A, D, E, K. Where are those? Primarily in animal fats. Butter, tallow, ghee, animal fats in your steak, milk, eggs, the thing we've been told not to eat. So vegans and vegetarians can get increased rates of cavities.
I'm starting to find a pattern of all the things we're not supposed to eat are actually good for us, and all the things they want us to eat is not good for us. Seems like there's something above us that's controlling the food system. But I guess we'll get into that in another episode that's full of conspiracies. But thank you so much, Paul. I had an amazing conversation.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Dude, I think we do have to do a part 2. And also, I would like to sit with you and hammer out a diet, do like a before and after.
Let's do it. We can maybe film it.
And then when we're done with it, do another podcast so
Yeah.
I could sit here and discuss all that I went through.
I'm going to hold you to it. If we're doing another podcast.
Yo, I'm doing it.
You got to do it, right?
I swear to you, I'll do it. I will commit.
That'd be really cool.
I would love to do it.
Yeah.
I have one last question.
Please.
What kind of honey do you recommend?
Yeah, what kind of honey do you recommend?
Thank you for the question. So when I'm looking at honey, I'm looking for something that's raw. So I don't want the honey to be pasteurized either. And I want the honey to be local, hopefully, but maybe not.
That's good because it
organic.
helps you with your allergies too that way.
It can help you with the allergies. And then I like honey that is tested for glyphosate. So here's the issue with honey is that bees get pollen from plants and the bees move away from the hives. The bees, I think it's a 6-mile radius that they pollinate. And so you want to make sure that the honey that you're getting ideally is tested for glyphosate contamination because this is a pesticide. The bees can bring back the glyphosate into the honey from pollen if they're pollinating crops that are sprayed with glyphosate. So yeah. So another thing that I did.
You must walk around so paranoid.
No, I'm good because knowledge is power, know better, do better. I would rather know.
I'm so sorry. He just from the hip. No, I'm good.
I would rather know and then, make the best choices I can. But with Lineage, here's another thing. We've got a glyphosate-free honey coming out. We're going to send you some. It's coming out like in 2 weeks, like a week from now. It'll be out by the time this podcast comes out, I'm sure. And we test it for glyphosate.
It's coming out this week, Thursday.
Potentially, yeah. Oh, the podcast?
Yeah.
So then the honey will be out in like a week from now.
Okay, amazing.
Amazing.
I'm going to put in the description, you guys can check out these products, and we'll put the description for your website where you're going to sell the honey. Dude, I feel like fired up. I feel like I really want to take all the knowledge that you just gave me and really put it to use. And to prove it, we are going to already schedule a part 2.
Awesome.
When should we schedule? Do you want a 30-day or a 60-day?
Well, you tell me. I'll do whatever you want.
No, you're the doctor, bro. I'm just following you.
Let's do like October.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was sitting down with Paul Saladino. If you guys want to follow him, honestly, guys, DM him. Try to get as much knowledge from this guy and deal with this stuff now while you're young so that way you don't have to pay for it in the future. I love you guys so much. I will see you guys next week. Peace.